open our meeting according to law. Let's do this first.
Muted.
Islam, Islam, Islam. We want to welcome everyone to our Moorish Perspective class, sponsored by our Moorish American government. And at this time, we're going to call for the National Assistant Grand Chief of Moorish America, Dr. Cyril Mental Health, for his steps to help for the opening of our meeting according to law. Islam.
Islam, Islam, Islamism without the schism. Want to rise upon the seven within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love,
Yeah,
and
National Assistant Grand Chief.
Unmuted.
Islam, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, pardon self. Islam, 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 Islamism without the schism. Want to rise upon the seven within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. But let us come forth with our ancient committee and adept Moorish American prayer. And as we come forth, we ask that you open up your hearts and minds as we open up the way. Islam, Islam, Islamism. Ya Allah abnu heru makunetaru. Ya Allah abhad heru. Ya Allah ma'ad heru. Ya Allah hutep heru. Ya Allah heru. Ya Allah ma'ad herakuti. Ya Allah ahwajeta juti. Ya Allah per im tutek per im heru. Ya Allah bamaduti. Al-Hajjat Shepherd's Rab to Ali. Amen. Hadias, Hadias, Hadias. And that is the same Moorish kin in transliteration. O Allah, the Father of the universe. O Allah, the Father of love. O Allah, the Spirit of truth. O Allah, the Spirit of peace. O Allah, the Spirit of freedom. O Allah, the Spirit of justice. O Allah, you are my protector. O Allah, you are my guide. O Allah, you are my salvation by night and by day. O Allah, through your holy prophet. O Allah, Drew Ali. Amen. Aliyassa, Aliyassa, Aliyassa. Islam, Moorish kin. And now we come forth before you with the divine constitution of Moorish America. Salvation, our God, unity. The seven supreme constitutional acts of law. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of Moorish America in power to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs, if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly, according to the Circle 7, in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh. On a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish Americans to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of the said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. This is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a partial of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you're entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious, and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, founding father and framer of the divine constitution and bylaws of Moorish America. And now that this meeting has been opened according to the triune acts, Acts 1, 2, and 3 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we say Islam, Islam, Islamism. The providence of Allah is ever all his works. He ruleth and directeth with infinite wisdom. He hath instituted laws for the government of the world. He had wonderfully varied them in all beings, and each by his nature, conforming to his will. Shimotepu Moorish Kin. Peace and love.
Muted.
And love and gratitude. That's Mr. Grancy for opening our meeting according to law. Islam, Islam, Islam. I'm Divine Minister Dr. Marvin Edwards Day, Consul General of the Texas Territory, rising, giving all praises to the great God Allah, the Father of the universe, and giving highest honors to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give high honors to our Moorish American government, our Act 1, and all of our officials and citizens of the Moorish American government, and everything that is Moorish. And that's everything that the prophet brought to save us as a nation of people, so that fallen humanity may be saved from the wrath of Allah. I will be reading chapter 38, Yehoshua again, in his first year of divine ministry. I will begin. The Jewish Paschal feast time came, and Yehoshua left his mother in Capernaum and journeyed to Jerusalem. And he abode with one Sadducee, whose name was Jude. And when he reached the temple court, the multitudes were there to see the prophet, whom the people thought had come to break the yoke of Rome and restore the kingdom of the Jews and the rules of David's throne. And when the people saw him come, they said, "All hail." But Yehoshua answered not. He saw the money changers in the house of Allah, and he was grieved. The courts had been converted into marts of trade, and men were selling lambs and doves for the priests. And Yehoshua called the priests and said, Behold, for poetry game, you have sold out the temple of Allah. This house ordained for prayer is now a den of thieves. Can good and evil dwell together in the courts of Allah? I tell you no. And then he drove them out and overturned the boards. He opened up the cages of the captive birds and cut the cords that bound the lambs and set them free. The priests and scribes rushed out and would have done him harm, but the common people drove them out, or drove them back, and stood in his defense. And then the ruler said, "Who is this Yehoshua you can call divine?" The people said, "He is the one the prophets wrote concerning, who would come and bring the world the love of Allah made known to men of earth, who will deliver Israel." The ruler said to Yehoshua, "If you be the one to come, then show us a sign. Who gave you the right to drive these merchants out?" And Yehoshua said, "There is no loyal Jew who would not give his life to save this temple from disgrace. In this, I acted simply as a loyal Jew, and you yourselves will bear me witness to the truth. The sign of my messiahship will follow me in word and deed. And you may tear the temple down. In 3 days, it will be built again." Now, Yehoshua meant that they may take his life, tear down his body, temple of the holy breath, and he would rise again. You men of Israel, hear, this man is more than man. Take heed to what you do. I have myself heard Yehoshua speak, and all the winds were still. And you will see his star arise, and it will grow until it is the full-orbed sun of love. And Yehoshua said, "Prepare, O Israel, prepare to meet your king. But you can never see the king while you press skin to your breast, to your hearts. This king is Allah. The pure in heart alone can see the face of Allah and live." Islam, Islam, Islam. I'm Dr. Marvin Edwards Day, Consul General of the Texas Territory. Today's date is October 25th, 2025. To give honors to our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of North America, Dr. Shedo Lamentiel, or Hetisepsuel, for the opening of our meeting according to law. And honors to Dr. Marvin Edwards Day, Consul General of Texas, for the reading of the chapter of the week of our Holy Quran and taking registration. Our host for the next class is our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of North America, Dr. Shedo Lamentiel, or Hetisepsuel, and his subject for the next class coming from Isaiah 17. And you may tear the temple down, and in 3 days it will be built again. We will now call to the floor our host, Dr. Shedo Lamentiel, Hetisepsuel. Are you there, God man?
Unmuted.
Islam, can you hear me, brother?
Yes, sir. I hear you well. Islam.
Islam, gratitude. Islam, Islamism without the schism. Want to rise upon the seven within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is, We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem National Flag, Divine Constitution, and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our Holy Prophet brought to exhume us as a nation. I want to welcome you to another Moorish Perspectives, and I'm your host instructor, Dr. Shahid Imani Mohadi Shabazz El, and my ancient committee and high name being the same as Dr. Shedawa Minti El Muhajjed Shepsuel. And most definitely have a grand drawing again to bring forth to you, Moorish kin, as always. Want to give honors to all of you. And we have a grand drawing in relation to dealing with our subject chapter for the week, chapter 38. Yehoshua, again, is actually dealing with his first year of divine ministry. And we have a grand measure in an ayat that you can see actually moving across in the banner in our screen. And you may tear the temple down, and in 3 days it will be built again. There's a particular way in which these chapters seem to come forth, with being right on time. We know time never was when man was not. Yet when we bring these things on the manifest, everything seems to flow in an interwoven sequence, so to speak, when it comes to the truth that we bring forth. For those who may have been able to tune in, in the last couple of days, we have been demonstrating the hammer of repetition, and pounding in the truth so that it may become a part of every other part of the consciousness of our people's minds. So we have been on various platforms. We give honors to our brother Sarnetta in the House of Consciousness for allowing us to bring forth our messages there. We've been on the Let's Think podcast, and a couple of different measures we brought forth, and we were actually dealing with, our Holy Prophet, when he was referred to as Professor Drew, the Egyptian adept student, which lets you know that our Holy Prophet himself, has been a student of learning. You see, that is not something that we seek to conceal and not reveal, so to speak. In fact, we are hierophants, so we are revealers of the light, and we don't conceal anything. However, there has been a lot of propaganda that has been put out there, and to our Moorish kin who haven't tuned in, we're going to touch on some things that we wasn't able to really go into, because y'all know when I do it, Moorish kin, I have, slides upon slides, and I have to stop myself sometime. But I actually sent out a link to those who would like to get on the panel. I see my brother Marvin Edwards Bay got the link. I couldn't send the PDF because they say it's too large, and I'm also out of storage. So what I would do, is end up sending it to our brother M.E. Bay, and maybe he can send it back through our original email, like the one that I sent this link out to, and he can actually drop it in there for you all, and so that our family can actually have a copy of this, because this is peer-reviewed information in what they would call in the House of Consciousness the toughest environment that you can be in. But we have demonstrated time and time, empirical data. And so that data has been entered into the consciousness of our people in the conscious community so that they can look over it. So that's what I do now. I do the research. I go on a tour with the information, and then I send out, my research to the people, so they can go do their own research on it, because people are always asking for sources. And in most cases, they ain't going to do nothing with the sources. But, so this is what I'm doing now. I'm sending it out there. It's been peer reviewed. No one can refute it. It's sad that some of the Moors are the only people that will try to refute what it is that's been brought forth. And that's why this subject matter is relative to this information, and why I am going to go into some of the information that I wasn't able to cover, in those presentations that I did on other platforms, to expand, this information is right on time. Like we said, you may tear the temple down in 3 days and it will be built again. Now, there's a grand drawing in relation to dealing with this concept of tearing the temple down. We know that Yehoshua had reference to those who sought to do him harm. I'm speaking in reference to those who sought to do my prophet harm. Some actually did him harm. We seen this, we witnessed this, as far as the historical accounts give to us. But he said also that I brought you something that you can't tear up. He said that he will be working from the plane of soul, because there the enemy can't hide. He can teach us better from the plane of soul. And so it is our holy prophet that, as we know, according to African ancestral, spirituality, our ancestors are able to aid and assist us from the plane of soul. Our ancestors are able to give us messages, of truth. This ain't spookism. This is taught universally throughout the continent of Africa, especially when you get into Kemet. Just as Osar passed form and went into the Amduat and became the first man to be resurrected, and then he passed, the rings of his authority down to his seed Heru, and Heru was able to communicate, the possibilities of his father as it relates to his resurrection, as it relates to the battle between him and his uncle Set, and this culminating into what we call the uniting, of lower and upper Kemet. In all actuality, the higher self and the lower self are what we're referring to. All of this is relevant to the measure that I'm getting ready to go into right now. So there were those who fit right in this same expression. You may tear down the temple. They tore the first Canaanite temple up. That was the first schism. That was the first day. They tore the MST of A up. That was the second schism and the second day. But the prophet said he brought you something that you can't tell. And that's this Moorish American government. This is the third day. This is the day of the third generation. The fourth generation is yet to come. The young and the not yet born. And we know 3 + 4 = 7. So when we go into this special drawing, family, we putting the truth out here to expose the naysayers, so to speak. And so we're going to touch on some things, some exclusives that we wasn't able to go into as it relates to time. So time never was. And I know I got a lot of time to go into the measures that I go into, certain things that are not really worthy of making note. You can go back to those presentations and look at them, but I won't try to go through everything in, the PDF. But I will be sending it out, like I said, once I'm done. You see, I got 158 slides in this PDF, and that's a lot. 100 is a lot. I had more, but I had to try to tighten it up. So I had to compile in the slides, so to speak, some of the information in one and collage it, just to get it to where I can present it without putting all them slides in there. It would have been more than that. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna share my screen for those who are looking, and those who are listening, just visualize what I'm saying. If you want to see it, I sent you the link. All you got to do is click on the link in your email. If you're in our email list, and you can see what I'm showing, while I'm demonstrating, you see. But if not, you'll have understanding. If you have, what we know, that good grand Moorish comprehension, and we know you got that. So let me do this here, because I don't want anything interfering with my frequency. I'm trying to close out the things that are not necessary, so to speak. But I want to emphasize something too before I go into this, in relation to dealing with this chapter. And this was actually spoken, in reference to dealing with Yehoshua, when he seen how people were selling out the house of Allah. Before there was ever an organization known as the Allah Temple of Islam, for example, that was established, by Master Farad Muhammad. I even have records saying that, one of the first establishments of Allah's Temple of Islam was actually established by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And we can say that, all of the temples that the Prophet actually established was Allah's temple before, Farad had come on the manifest. But we're going to touch on some things here. And it's going to mainly be dealing with the 3 days, the first schism, second schism, and Islamism without the schism, which is where we are now. We want to make this thing as clear and chronological as possible. So Yehoshua said, in our Moorish Holy Quran, behold, for paltry gain, you have sold out the temple of Allah. You see? And then he said, this house is ordained for prayer, is now a den of thieves. Can good and evil dwell together? This was our measure last week. In the courts of Allah, I tell you no. And he drove them out. He turned over the boards. In the Piscean records, they say he turned over the tables. So this is a form of Yehoshua reacting, which showed you that Yehoshua wasn't some panty-raised jellyback. You see, Yehoshua, was willing to, as the young generation say, crash out about the Most High. There are measures even in the Piscean records that they are hush and quiet about when it comes to things in Yehoshua's character. He reacted a lot of times. There were times when they would come to Yehoshua with foolishness, and he would walk off from them and start drawing in the dust. In the Piscean records, it say this. I would laugh when I would read them stories. He was so frustrated with them. He just walk off from them and just start, drawing in the dust. I guess the dust could better comprehend what it was that he was trying to convey, so he was writing a message to the earth. But nevertheless, there was always somebody that was trying to one-up Yehoshua, challenge him. I would laugh when I would see those people when he would go at him and he's, go to demonstrating their reason amongst themselves. If we say this, then we fear him because he's a prophet and the people will stone us. And if we say this, and then, I was like, these people crazy. Because I looked and I said, this is exactly how people demonstrate in this new era in time. So it would tickle me, to see the Sadducees and the Pharisees, reacting in such a way. But as we go down into this measure, it speaks of Yehoshua opening up the cages of captive birds and cutting the cords that bound the lambs and set them free. This actually reminded me, about a year and some change ago, when we had this little parrot. I actually got the video on my page, and the little parrot, got out the cage, and the parrot got up there on the picture of the prophet and just posted up there for the longest. And it reminded me of that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna show it to y'all real quick. Let me see if I can go into it and pull this up. And that was very symbolic to me. I thought of this lesson. I'm gonna show it to you though. Let's see, because I actually have it up here in my videos. And let me make sure I got to share my screen first. Let's see here. And I'm gonna share the whole screen. That way I ain't got to worry about if I'm shifting between the pages. But I'm gonna show you this right here. And I actually had put this up here. And sent it out there to the Moors. Because like I said, it was very significant to me. It was a grand demonstration to me. And it is to this day. Let's see here. Let me scroll down through here. Our prophet came to set the captives free. There you go, right there. Let's see. Yeah, so, yeah, that's the bird right there. See it perching right up there, right on top of the picture. It flew out now. I don't know why that bird wanted to get its little self and squeeze its little self in that tight little spot, but to me, that was a sign, that my prophet was sending a message. We can't make this stuff up, family. That is not AI. You know what I mean? So when I seen that, and I said, looking like a little Shabazz Heru bird up there, LOL. But you see it? See the little bird right there? Right up on the prophet picture, right there where my little sash hanging down there. You know what I mean? And later on, to be honest with you, the bird was so small because the bird knew how to get out the cage. It learned how to get out of there. It literally would pull the little door up and get up out of there. And so the bird was taken outside, out the door. And, to get some air. And one day we took it out there and come out there, the bird was gone. Freed from the cage. I can't make this stuff up. I'm telling you, that's what happened. So that, please *6 your phone more. You know better. Who that is? Somebody done *6 their phone. I can't hear. But anyway, if you can, panelists, mute them out. I don't know. I just hear something in the background. I don't know what's going on.
Sir. I think that's your song, sir. I think that's the National Grand Sheik, sir.
Okay, well, he probably hit the button by mistake then. Yeah, I know our sheep.
Yes, sir.
All right, Islam. Yeah, I couldn't hear it. I just heard noise going on. Couldn't hear what it was. So, yeah, but yeah, so there, there you have it. You see the bird, as we just showed you right there, hanging out with the prophet. I can't make this stuff up, man. I'm telling you. I can't make it up. The bird was hanging out with the prophet. And if I told y'all that without having captured it on video, y'all would have thought that I was just making that up, as some people would say. But to me, that was very symbolic. Even the bird leaving, and flying away, that has symbolic meaning too, to me personally. So when it come down to dealing with that in and of itself, to me, represents a symbolic miracle. It represents a symbolic miracle to me, to see that being demonstrated and assigned to me, which is telling me that my duty is to do what my prophet did, set the captives free. My duty, is to stand on the truth, just as my prophet did, in a real way, not a way of spookism. So everything that I demonstrate, I'm here to bring forth what we call pre-science. that which was already predestined according to what we call creative faith. So we are told in another measure, I want to point this out, in our present chapter, that the priests and scribes rushed out. And they would have done Yehoshua harm, just for setting the lambs and everything else free. Because they like, man, this man trying to take away our livelihood. But the common people drove him back and stood in his defense. This is what we find going on now. Those who have sold our prophet out. Those who have made his temple a den of thieves. These particular ones, and their priests and scribes, they rush out now, and they would like to do all of us who come forth teaching of our holy prophet harm. They would like to do our prophet harm if they want to do us harm, whether it be physically, mentally, or spiritually. But we see a lot of time, it's a lot of keyboard warriors out there that like to try to do harm by assassinating the character, of our chairman, or trying to come at me sideways, and always pretty much learning the hard way that it ain't gonna work. Because I'm upright, independent, and fearless, and I don't mind swinging that scimitar. In fact, I'm like Ali, the cousin of Prophet Muhammad. I invite you. You see? But beware. If you don't want the smoke, stay where you're at. So we see why those who claim to follow the way of the prophet, the so-called priests and scribes, or what the prophet has established, they seek to bring about this harm I spoke of, the physical, the mental, or the spiritual, assassination of the character as I spoke of. The common people are the ones that drive these people back and stand in his defense. Because we have people right there on the house of consciousness that are now getting the message. And they can see what it is that one is demonstrating. We give honor to all of those who have a heart to empathize and sympathize with the prophet, because there was a time when a Moor couldn't even go forth without getting a intellectual dome beat in, and I stood up in the storm, against all the ridicule and all this type of stuff here until our people got where one is coming from, and now they get the message. And we give honors to those who are now paying attention and tuning in, because the best is yet to come. And this ain't about me. I'm standing here as a representative of my holy prophet. I'm his vessel. And I'm allowed to be his vessel by the great God Allah. That's what we call spirit clothed with soul, made in the form of Allah. We're talking about the reality. We ain't boasting, of the attainment of things that are of no worth. We're not, screaming epithets at you, or just trying to say that, hey, I'm this man of a station, executive blue, the grand hoorah and poobah, whatever. We out here doing the work. But it is the common people that are now standing in defense of what it is that our prophet has brought by their support. Because we got Moors that say they follow the prophet that won't even support their Moorish kin, inside and outside of our Moorish American government. Truth be told. Yeah, I said it. Now, I'm going to speak the truth. And see, that's the problem. That's what make a lot of people hate Brother Shaheed. Because I tell the truth uncut. But if you don't fit in that category, then what you getting mad for? If that shoe don't fit you, then what you trying to put it on for? So get mad at yourself if you feel like that you one of them ones. If I call you out by name, then you got something to worry about. And I will call you out by name. You understand? So don't be trying to put yourself in nothing that ain't got nothing to do with what's going on with you. I keep telling our people that. And you ain't got to worry about being singed by the message that I'm bringing forth. But if it make you feel somewhere you squirming in your seat, you're 38 hot, as we would say back in the day, then you may have to reevaluate yourself. Because I can't help how you take what I say. And I ain't going to be here to try to convince you otherwise. A question was asked, who is this Yehoshua you call divine? That's basically the same thing that many have asked our prophet. So we had to let them know who the man, the myth, and the legend was. Who is this Yehoshua? This Yehoshua. Who is this Yehoshua? I'm going to say it one more time. Who is this Yehoshua you call divine? There was a Yehoshua 2,000 years ago. But this Yehoshua that I'm referring to in this new era in time is Yehoshua come again. So who is this Yehoshua that we call divine? El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali. Huh? Is that plain enough? You see? Yeah, this is the one that the people wrote of concerning that he would come and bring the world a love of Allah made known to the men of earth who would deliver the Moorish American Muslims in this new era in time. That's what I'm talking about. Is that plain enough? Did I make myself clear? I want to make sure I ain't too esoteric. I want to make sure ain't nobody saying I'm going over their head. I don't comprehend what he's saying. Huh? So it says, there is no Lord Jew who would not give his life to save this temple from disgrace. In this, I acted simply as a law Jew. In other words, there is no law Moorish American who would not give his life to save this temple from disgrace. And we're not just talking about a mere lawfully chartered organization, because we know the prophet did his work there and that temple went with him. We'll let somebody else do that work in that aspect. But we're referring to the temple of perfected man. That's the grand major temple. That's the true Moorish science temple, once called Moorish Holy Temple of Science. You know, it get deep, because when you get into the science that is referred to as Tasawwuf, and you go through those stages that correspond with our lessons as it relates to here now, ye seraphim, ye cherubim, ye angels, and ye men, you know, which represent our four quadrants as a true fact. In the 102s, and we see Moorish Holy Temple of Science, there's something that came to me. The paths in Tasawwuf that one goes through to reach perfection as a temple of perfected man. They go through or come out of the stage of what we call Sharia. That's dealing with the regular laws, similar to us dealing with general laws coming into supreme law. But then they move from Sharia to Tariqat, which is a path. You know, and there are very different paths along the line of Tariqat. You know, whatever so Sufi chain isnad of narration that you would chose to go through. You know, whether it's the Chishtiya, you know, the Neomatala, what they call the Ishmaeli, you know, whether you go into the Qadriya, whatever, these are different tariqats. The man starts first with the law, but moving in the path of the angels, you know, and dealing with the concept of getting closer to the great God Allah by the love of Allah. That's what Tasawwuf deals with. But you move from Sharia to Tariqat, and from Tariqat to Hakikat. Hakikat is where man himself become the truth. That's what the truth is, al-Haq. Then when you move from Hakikat, you move to Marifat. But there's something that has been in my face the whole while, and I didn't see it until recently, in the last couple of days. Just like we have Allah as arm, leg, arm, head. If you were to remove all the letters, if you were to isolate the first letter of Shariat, Tariqat, Hakikat, and Marifat, and you were to look at them in reverse, they will be M, H, S, M, H, T, and S, which is the same as what we have as Moorish Holy Temple of Science. That's powerful, because the Moorish Holy Temple of Science in the 102s, you know, we talk about the adept chamber of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. You are the Holy Temple of Science. You are Moorish, because you are more God than you are a mere man, brothers. You are more of a goddess than you are a mere woman, sister. That's what more-ish mean, more-isha. Huh? The science is a living manifestation. It is a power that exerts itself for the individual at the will of the user. The temple is the temple of perfected man. What life is spent to build. The buildings that we seen that men went in as a Moorish Holy Temple of Science, a Moorish Science Temple, those were physical buildings. It didn't take a lifetime to build those temples. They were erected at a period of time, and they on the manifest now, but under different names. Somebody else owns these places today. But when it come down to dealing with the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, or the Moorish Science Temple, as it relates to you, the individual, this is what life is spent to build. And you will be building upon this temple. And it won't be capstone, you know, until you transcend, you know, this carnal reality in your thought pattern. You have to go back beyond the rate of the atmosphere, because man fell when his thoughts reached the rate of the atmosphere. That's when our first banner that was white became red. White mean purity. Purity mean God. God mean the ruler of the land. And we ain't talking about no white man. He don't exist. Show me one. Just like we know a black man don't exist. When it come down to dealing with the concept of there being a so-called nation called a white nation or a black nation. Show it to me. That's pseudo as it can be. Now we understand the descriptive expression in which one is making. That's all good and well. I won't fight you on that. I know what you mean. But there's something deeper when it comes to nationality as it relates to who we truly are. You see? And that's what Prophet Noble Drew Ali was trying to teach us. So there is no lower Moorish American Muslim who would not give his life to save this temple from disgrace. And in this, we all act simply as lower Moorish Muslims. And the world will bear witness to this truth if we be the truth. Our sign of our messiahship will follow us in our words, acts, and deeds. And you may seek to tear down this temple, and in 3 days it will be built again. Because that fourth generation is coming after the third generation. The pioneers of this Moorish American government, Islamism without the schism, and it's going to be rebuilt again on a sure foundation stone of understanding. You see? So you can't tear down the temple of holy, bro. That's the real Moorish Holy Temple of Science. So you men and women of Moorish America, you better heed this. This man, Moorish American National, MAN, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, this Yehoshua, come again, is more than a man. So take heed to what you do. I myself have heard the voice of my prophet speak from out of the highest plane of spirit life. And the winds are still, and I too am still in the divine will, a deific will. I have seen his star arise and seen it grow until it has become full orb as a sun of love. The sun of righteousness has risen with healing in its wings. That's what I see. That's what I see. So prepare, Moorish America. Prepare to meet your king. But you can never see the king while you press sin to your hearts, your hatred, your sinful ways, the ways that Prophet Noble Drew Ali said he came to redeem us from. This king is Allah, and pure in heart. Only the pure in heart can see the face of Allah and live. Big facts. Did I make myself plain? Did I make myself clear? So let me continue to move. I'm gonna share my screen now and touch on some things that I was not able to touch upon. And we're gonna make it plain to you. Now, what one do with the truth after they get it, that's on them. Okay. So now that we have this in queue, let me make sure I want to do this one more time. Okay, I'm sharing. It's shared. Brother Emmy Bay, can you see my screen sharing, brother? I want to make sure.
Islam.
Islam, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Coming through the
Yes.
I see you got the Swift Angel up
Seal.
on the earth.
Okay, can you see it?
Yeah.
Can you see it moving?
Oh yeah, you're going through with with the prophet was in that class.
Yeah, okay, yeah, most definitely. I just wanted to make sure. Gratitude, grand man. Okay, so our information, like I say, this has been peer reviewed. We have put it out there in the conscious community. It's irrefutable, and we've been battle tested, tried and tested many times. And most time, what people can only do is redirect the course. But this is brought to you by the Egyptian Adeptus Research Sultanate. I want to give honor to our scribes, who stayed the course and have received their adept Jew, the same one you see right there. All of the scribes that stayed the course and went through the class, they earned that. They earned that. So we want to give honor to all of those who are honorary among the scribes, and they are the adepts, that have went through, this fire. So what we have here, and I ain't gonna go over all of these slides because it's 2 minutes. I'm just touching on certain things. I'm gonna slide through here pretty quick. The things that are relevant. We showed you our research that we done in reference to seeking out our prophet. And we see, the pyramid of men here as we show it to our people all the time. You see the brother that I have here in the triangle. As I did my research, and when you blow it up right here, you see I have it here with the prophet in his calling card, Professor Drew, Egyptian Adept student. You see this. Need I say more? And this is in Cairo, Egypt. We also have the likeness of our brother Deuce Muhammad Ali. Right here. He was from that area. But, I always like to talk to our people, and let them know of our source of the mysteries and the teachings that we demonstrate. We are here to be custodians of the Ansoretic priesthood of the Moors. We are the keepers of the mysteries of the Moors and the Hashemites, Moors of ancient Asia, demonstrating a unified mystery stream. So when you hear me demonstrating, yes, you're going to hear me come from Kemet, demonstrating the mysteries of all sorts of wisdom. Yes, you're going to hear me talking about Akhenaten and monotheism and the initiatic temples of Kemet, such as the halls of Luxor. Our chairman told us that if you were ever asked by one that called themselves a Mason, a Western Freemason, where you hailing from, you tell them you hail from the halls of Luxor. That's what the chairman said. That's the halls of Luxor and Kemet. Ain't got nothing to do with nothing Luxor over here in the West. Do your research on the halls of Luxor, and you will understand the concept of the temple in man and the temple of perfected man, because that temple was built off of the model of man. When you come up through the entryway, you move from the feet all the way up into the Holy of Holies, which is the head, the adept chamber. And they have many charts on this in social media that you can look at. Pull up the halls of Luxor right now, the temple of Luxor, as it relates to the chart of man's body, and watch what you see. So the Hashemite lineage, which is really the Cushite lineage, relates to the Muhammad of the Cushitic bloodline, of the Sabian bloodline. There has been a grand secret that has been kept, and there's a reason why the Sabians were honored in the Grand Quran. Is because Muhammad come from that lineage. A lot of his customs came from that lineage. Some of the customs that have been adopted into, the Abbasid hadiths that they created 200 years after Muhammad, that he told them not to create. And the reason why they didn't want to show what Muhammad looked like is because Muhammad was melanated. If you go and do research on whom is known now among the scholars as the Abyssinian Muhammad, you find that he had locks and his skin was brown. So now you hear why they got a problem with Muslims have a lengthy hair. Muhammad had locks. If his skin was brown, then who does that look like to you? So yeah, there's a reason why they never wanted you to see his true persona. Because if they put him up there as a pale-faced Arab, truth be told, oops, did I say that? Then surely, it would be debunked for those who do the research. But we are not even so much as focused on the Muhammad in the physical. We deal with the Muhammadan light. The light of Muhammad is said to have existed at the beginning of the world. You know how like they try to demonstrate that same measure with Yehoshua. Is all speaking of the spirit. This is the same spirit that is not bound by time, jurisdiction, or location. So this is why our holy prophet said, when I was Muhammad, because that same light personified itself in him. When I was Noah, because that same light personified itself in him. Yehoshua will come again, because that same light personified itself in him. The enlightened Buddha, because that same light personified itself in him. Am I making myself clear? We know what we're saying here. Who is the first person into whom Yehoshua was first reincarnated? Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror is speaking of that same light. What is spirit clothed made in the soul? What is spirit clothed with soul made in the form of Allah? What is a prophet? A thought of Allah made manifested in human flesh. That's a love thought. That's a divine thought. That's a thought of light. Not light that travels at 186,000 miles per second, but a light that moves at a more rapid pace. A light that cannot be calculated according to man's time apparatus. Islam. So when we go into this aspect of the Muhammadan light in the covenant of Hashim, or the bloodline of sovereignty of the house of the prophet, as they call it, the Al-Bayt, the family of the prophet, Al and the Bays, the house of Allah, the true house of Allah is found in what we call Sidratul Muntaha, above the neck, in the seventh heaven, the same heaven that Muhammad himself ascended into in his journey. And him going through these unfoldment stages was his initiation under the guide in the hierophant, the angel Jibril. Am I making myself plain? The Ansaritic Brotherhood, Gnostic cosmology, wine allegories, the hidden imam, reincarnation cycle, secret rites of initiation. We teach on all of this. The Moors of Asia Major, the earth and world over, in relation to dealing with maritime law, the divine harbor, Asiatic identity, nationhood and God, Moorish science and esotericism. We teach all of that. The prophet brought all of that in the Moorish Holy Quran. The unified mystery system of Tawheed, divine unity, the oneness of God, sovereign nation of God, eternal gnosis. We teach on all of that. So that's the perspective that I come from. Now let me slide through these slides. See if I can do it in 30 minutes. The prophet said, I took the cover off of all secret organizations. So this statement alone proves that Noble Drew Ali was not a Freemason, for those who believe that he was. The prophet also said, do not bring children to an adept meeting or in a building where an adept meeting is taking place. If you go to an adept meeting, don't tell anyone who does not go what happened at the meeting. Try to have your temples and buildings where the meetings are on the second floor. Your services can be secured and held without interruptions of trafficking people. Why did the prophet say don't bring children into adept meeting? A lot of people look at this, yeah, we can look at the young ones, the seeds. We know that this would be distracting, but we are children of one Father, provided for by his care. So even some of us who think that we grown don't know, some of our people are still children in their thinking. So they don't comprehend the meeting of the mind, because that's where your true adept chamber is. So when you're trying to demonstrate a meeting between mastermind, you can't have no children in the midst of that. A child in thought. But they ain't gonna do nothing but distract the demonstration between the meeting of the minds, as they do all the time. Also, it's a reason why you don't tell nobody who don't go. It ain't got nothing to do with secrecy. If they were meant to be there, then they would be there. And you don't see the United States of America telling everybody about what go on in their chambers, because some of those things will be a detriment or allow certain adversaries to have information to where they can tear something up. So the prophet had good intent in saying what he said. You know? I won't go into this one right here. I'll let y'all read it. This deal with, some of the statements on religion, but just know our prophet told our people the reason they didn't want to accept Islamism because it belonged to them. So we already know we deal with the four sacred schools of thought. I won't go over that one right there. It ain't necessary to go over that one, but I want to give honors to my prophet, and I always do say, that I give honors to my grandson because he came through the chambers of the same manifestation of our prophet's birth. Even when the doctors, stated, that he will be born on January the 10th. I say, no, sir. He's going to be born on January the 8th. So he was born on the same day of the prophet. So I celebrate the birth of both of them. Some of the reason why we have had conflict is because of three ruffians, that have come forth and put information out here on our prophet to tear down his temple, to tear down those who have faith in their prophet. And those three ruffians are none other than Muhammad al-Ari, who wrote books recently on the history of Islam in America, Jacob Dorman, who wrote that garbage book, The Princess and the Prophet, and then you got Patrick Bowen, who also wrote on the Islamic Renaissance, and all of them have wrote on the history in relation to dealing with one known as Abdul Hamid Suleiman and trying to state that he was the prophet's teacher. This is a measure out of Jacob Dorman's book, for example. Jacob Dorman wanted our people to believe that this individual, this Hindu figure known as Walter Brisner, had faked his death and he was our holy prophet. Clearly, you see that this is not Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Stop it. But the European think all of us look the same. But our people allow him to get away with this. You got Moors that were part of the MST of A, some of the same, actually come from the lineage of Kirkman Bay, and they actually contributed to these books. Some of the same people that put lies out here against our chairman also contributed to these books, autographed copies, and called a European on their channels. We got all that there. We done put it out there in the past. Then they got this female here, which is supposed to be the companion of Walter Brisner. And I didn't put the sister picture up there, but he done got her mixed up with Lomax Bay wife. And don't look nothing like this sister. They sitting there with the prophet in front of the MST of Islam, brother Marvin Edwards Bay.
Yeah, I think I'm going. Okay, I got it. Sorry about that. Funny about it.
Yeah, what's going on?
No, I see it now. I had
okay.
A screenshot. It wasn't on the right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Islam. So yeah. So, but people believe that and accept that book, the books that were wrote by these people, and they don't question it. You got more supporting this nonsense, going against their prophet, and at the same time trying to act like they're with the prophet. But I know who they really is, so you can't fool me. So we have an evolution on, Thomas Drew. And Thomas Drew and Timothy Drew is the same person, Morris. So don't let nobody bring that nonsense to you, about the name. Yes, we have seen, our prophet being spoke of as Timothy Drew throughout the whole measure, but Thomas Drew and Timothy Drew is the same person. We know this because of the work of the prophet, and we got proof of it. So I use the term Thomas Timothy Drew. And I told our people that, Thomas Drew and Timothy Drew, the name, the reason why there's a change, it could be a possibility based upon his adoption. That his auntie called him Thomas instead of Timothy. That's a possibility. You see? And it could be a possibility that's his name anyway, but he mostly used the term Timothy. But Allah knows best, but I will say they're the same person. But for people who tried to say our prophet was trying to hide his identity, those liars, need to get on somewhere. So we have a census here that's given the record of Thomas Drew, and this is very significant because it talk about him being in Norfolk, Virginia. That's another thing. There was a time that Virginia and North Carolina was known as one and the same, for those who don't know better. So when you see them say Norfolk, Virginia, they still were talking about a portion of the Carolinas. Do your research. But anyway, when we go into Princess Anne Avenue, Norfolk, Virginia, Thomas Drew, 1898, they had him here as a laborer. And it spoke of those who were his siblings as James Washington Drew, Lucy Drew. He was a laborer. At this time, 12 years old is how old he would have been. Then in the census, in the third column, they show in 1900 him being a farmhand under the same people, his same siblings. Then in the fourth column, they show in 1910 a Thomas unknown in a different location. You see, in different siblings, so to speak, that are mentioned there. So we can't and will not claim that as being Thomas Drew, because it says Thomas unknown. But we do see popping up in the census again, L.E. Drew, spelled with an E instead of an A, 1916, a Porter. And it says 1422 Moore Richmond, Virginia. And it said Edward Gus Sully. But we know that this Porter, being L.E. Drew, was none other than Prophet Noble Drew Ali. But that's 16 years in a gap that Thomas was not mentioned in the census. So where was he? We have a display up here showing how students were going over into Egypt, and it's from 1907. That's like 4 years after the prophet had already been in Kemet. And this is the Asuit College, which is in Cairo, and it shows a group of students from the West. And I was telling the person, if I would look among these men and say, if my prophet was here, and I won't, say that he was, I would actually point out this particular one right here, the young man, being a young man. But that's neither here nor there. I want to get into, the essence of it. Here's the registration card with Thomas Drew, 181 Warren Street. A laborer, submarine boat, and this is after you see it says new. It says here Norfolk, Virginia. It talk about his muscle being burned. We know that come from him being burned when he was thrown on that oven by his auntie. That confirms that story that we are told. Sound like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to me. But anyway, now that we have, the address and confirm the Thomas connection, we can get rid of that nonsense they were trying to use. Anything they can to pull straws to go against the character of our prophet. We have pyramid guys before the entry of the pyramids, and they are known as the Silent Brotherhood. Our brother Mustafa Gadala referred to him as the Balati. They only surface when it's time to take one through the pyramids, according to the tradition of Egyptian adepts. But you see that they are of our hue, them our people. If you walk past them, you wouldn't even know who they were. I know, that they were adepts because they wear the garb of common people. They don't come blowing no grand flute and piping. Then we have another group of brothers, the Moabites, which are Moabites in Mauritania. These are the custodians of the wisdom that came out of Kemet. You see, they have on the same type of garbs that a lot of the Moors don out today, and our prophet. We see our prophet as a young man, 27 years old, 26 or 27, and we see him on the side of him, two other adepts, Hamid Bey and Haji Ali. Haji Ali, his videos can be seen right there on YouTube. But they went through the chambers after the prophet. And they were given tests. We know Hamid Bey was just like the prophet. We see this measure where the prophet and all of them advertised on some of their adept performances before the masses. I had a picture from my older sister that was given saying the prophet was in Egypt. I got my pictures that I actually found, and I put this out there, showing, the prophet again. And this was found when I found the pyramid, the picture of the brothers in the pyramid in Cairo in the early 1900s. And you see the prophet here again as a young man. And you can see the uncanny resemblance. And these men that are surrounding him, the significance of it, they are before a hotel in Cairo where people stay. And these men were known as dragnet men, which are men who are tour guides. So it ain't strange that the prophet would, be in a surrounding like that. I pointed out certain measures about the prophet's affiliation with a Hazrat Aniyat Khan. I believe there was some overlap in reference to the so-called fikr that he was dealing with, because Hazrat Aniyat Khan was in the United States of America. I did my research. Hazrat Aniyat Khan has on his fez in one picture Pramahana Uganda. The reason why I don't say he met the prophet or he was with the prophet over here, because he came over here after the time frame. But there's a possibility when the prophet was in India that he may have crossed paths with Pramahana Hamza Uganda as well. So I dispelled the myth, in relation to dealing with this guy Suleiman in the first schism teaching the prophet. And we have a brochure with Dr. Drew. Same picture that I pulled from and I was showing a few minutes ago. And it talked about how the prophet was healing people from all types of things, just like Dr. Sebi. And he was actually incarcerated for this. And I pointed out, before the feds, Fatih Abdat, who had wrote another book, another individual that was going against the prophet, and I exposed to our family, in our presentation. When you click the link on it and you get the PDF, you'll see that he was over here asking me, Salam, Brother Ka, I'm very interested in using your brochure for an essay. And they take this stuff and write against the prophet. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, we ain't getting you nothing to tear our prophet down. No, that ain't going to happen. So I didn't respond to it. I'm talking about I'll cite you in it if you would like me to. See, a lot of the other Moors fell for that. So this is a primary source material here. And I actually put it in order, to let you know all the evidence that we have when the prophet was referred to as Professor Drew. And it talks about Dr. Thomas Drew right here advertising as an Egyptian adept student, who has been performing in his mysterious chamber in the attic in 2nd School Street. If you look at the bottom down here, that's School Street, that's 2nd School Street, Newark, New Jersey. Then the other measure, where he said, I am a Muslim. And I showed you that in the first picture that I was comparing the brothers in the pyramid. When the prophet said, I'm an Egyptian adept. But it's also down here, 181 Warren Street, the same thing that was on, the draft certificate of the prophet. And then I made it plain over here because it was hard to read. And the prophet telling you, I'm a Muslim. That's the first thing he say. It said, Prophet Drew was a man who was born with divine power. He was taught by the Egyptian adepts. Then he talked about having a secret to destroy the burnt germs of tuberculosis, cancer in the lung in 10 to 30 days. And he ran it down. He also said he had the 18 years of the life of Christ. That's silent in the Holy Bible for those who want to or desire to know more about Jesus the Christ. So we know he had this document way back in 1916 before he published it in 1927. So there's another drawing here I have as a link. And this actually goes into the history of the prophet when he was in Newark, New Jersey, and when he was locked up. And it talk about Egyptian adept student is finally released by the judge, Judge Pilgrim. Dr. Thomas Drew miracles, many. And, they go into this thing and see it says here 22 School Street for several weeks. That's the same brochure I was showing you. So we know it's talking about the prophet. And it goes into him saying he healed people from illness, and they sent somebody in there with a marked bill to set the prophet up, and they locked him up. But it says that the prophet said that he got these powers, he learned this stuff from India. That's where he say he learned this ability from when he was in Egypt. You see, right here, Professor Drew said he learned his work in that great country of India. He said that. This is a primary source. So yeah, it go into talking about, he can exercise one and take evil influences out of them and all types of stuff. Same stuff that we hear about in this hadiths. But you'll get to read that on your own. But people tried to use that to mock the prophet because he was incarcerated. They didn't do nothing but what they did to Sebi. Same thing. So there's a drawing here where I keep quoting to our family coming from the Grand Quran in reference to the naysayers, and it's coming from Yusuf Ali's translation. It says, of them, there are some who pretend to listen to thee, but we have thrown veils on their hearts so they understand it not, and deafness in their ears. If they saw every one of the signs, not would they believe in them, insomuch that when they come to thee, they will but dispute with thee. The unbelievers say these are nothing more than tales of the ancients. And that's coming from the Grand Quran, the 6th degree and 25th landmark. In other words, 6th surah and 25th ayah. And so I asked the question, who would deny Prophet Noble Drew Ali his Hajj to the east, but those who reject his prophethood? And I keep expressing, and we see the 10-year period in between that 16-year gap from the census record, that shows that from 1902 up to 1912, why he was absent in the census. But they want to believe, like I say, that Moses climbed Mount Sinai. I believe that too. They want to believe about Elijah on Mount Nebo and Mount Olive, and Jesus on Mount Olive, and Mount Moriah, and, all these different prophets. And we don't have proof. We never seen it. We believe it. But here's a man that lived in this new era in time, and they want to act like my prophet was unworthy to actually make Hajj to the east when he has said this stuff and taught it many times. If he said it, that's all the evidence I need. We also got evidence up here showing that he never incorporated, his first temple, neither the Canaanite temple or the Moorish divine and national movement. But there was a Canaanite temple that was incorporated after the prophet departed in 1922. They actually incorporated in 1924. But neither one of these places this dude, Hamed Suleiman, was present, even though we know in the records it state he came back from Egypt with the prophet and he was a co-founder. But he has never been pushed as a founder, and there's nowhere that one can prove this. You see? May 1st, 1916 is the first time the prophet officially used the word Moorish in his literature, and he was referring to the Moorish divine and national movement. When he say 1913 in the questionnaire, as it relates to the Moorish Holy Temple of Science or the Moorish Science Temple, is talking about the time that the prophet preceded his work. But nevertheless, he had not incorporated in either one of these times. And Brother Turner L., who was a student of the Canaanite Temple, growed up in it. You know, he tells the FBI agent this in the question session that they had, interrogation session. And we know the prophet said right here, gave the reason why he found the Moorish Science Temple of America and why it was organized to play a useful part in defining the advancement of sacred obligation of American citizenship. And he said that the Moorish Divine National Movement was founded for the uniting of the Asiatic states of North America on May 1st, 1916. We see the prophet standing on the charter. This came from the FBI files. And beneath that, we see May 1st, 1916. That's Turner L. charter. Because when he established his temple as a Moorish Science Temple Incorporated, he also called it Moorish Divine and National Movement of North America. And the reason he did that, because that's what the prophet called his original demonstration, Moorish Divine and National Movement. So before there was a Moorish Holy Temple of Science or Moorish Science Temple, it was Moorish Divine and National Movement. We even have a card from them, you know, on the page. So nevertheless, dealing with the first schism, we learn why now the prophet engaged with the people like he did. And I actually going further because that one ain't even present. So I'm gonna extend this measure into 30 more minutes and close it. That way I can close it out. But and end it around about 9. It says, one of Drew Ali's divine ministers told of a time when he had set up a meeting of Christian preachers to counsel with the holy prophet to see whether these preachers would follow the holy prophet. And the preachers and the pastors were assembled, and the divine minister was addressing them before the holy prophet came to the meeting. And one of the preachers said, if he know what Drew Ali could do what Moses did, I'll follow him. And the holy prophet was not present in the room when this statement was made. And the meeting place was on the 3rd floor of the building that they were in. And when the prophet arrived at the meeting, he told the preacher, I can do what Moses did. But if I came in walking into the meeting with a lion on a chain, you would jump out the window and kill yourself. And you know, here it followed up, Asiatic preachers and Masons would be the last to come home. And they will fight me tooth and claw, but cannot win, because these are the people that was opposing the prophet. This was dealing with the Canaanite temple. This is the first schism. This was the mindset. You know? Yeah. Let's go on. That ain't necessary. But what I will do as I'm going through this, in this Canaanite temple, we found that the prophet, you know, the first time this one known as Farad Muhammad had crossed paths with the prophet. And I used to believe that he was the one that caused the confusion in the Canaanite temple, but we found out it was really Suleiman. Him and the prophet Farad Muhammad just had crossed paths, and he was calling himself Wali Farad Muhammad Ali. See, Farad veiled himself in a lot of code, attaching himself to a lot of great movements that attached itself to who he was indirectly. As you can see here, I have Wali Muhammad Ali of Egypt, who established the Muhammad Ali dynasty. You know, and this was the significance of the Muhammad Ali connection to Farad's name, but also the link between Egypt and Turkey as it relates to the Young Turks, you know, which is where they adopted their flag from in the NOI. You know, when you look at the flag that's up here, it actually says freedom, justice, equality, Allah. But then it says freedom, justice, equality, Islam. This is Farad being questioned, and you can see this descendant of the Fuad dynasty is a striking resemblance between Farad, you know, right here, you know, but it goes deeper, because when the prophet met him, he was calling himself Wali Farad Muhammad Ali, Wali Farad Muhammad Ali, so to speak. We have pictures that we found when we were doing our research looking for Farad. And we found a picture of him in his youth under Wali Farad Muhammad Ali name, or Wali Fawad Muhammad Ali. You can see the eyebrows here. You can see the eyebrows over there. You see them ears. You can look at him and tell, that's the man. That's a ring showing they flag with the freedom, justice, equality, Allah, where they got it from. And later he named himself Wallace Farad Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad. Dr. Fuad Mehmed Bey is also an alias he used. We have another picture of him when he was around that time, when he met the prophet. Then we're showing those schisms that came up out of the first Canaanite temple. Farad is said to have been in America from 1910 all the way up to 1935, moving back and forth 20 years. So we got pre-Nation Islamic history. We got the brother Sheikh Ahmad Din Fahmi Rasul, Paul Nathaniel Johnson, founder of the Fahmi Temple of Islam around the same time when the prophet, was getting ready to make his exodus, from New Jersey, 1919. Nathaniel Johnson in his literature recognized our prophet as a prophet in two places. One, he recognized him as a reincarnation of Amin Ra and Amin, as the prophet, in the information. And then he also was going over the seal of the prophet, saying it simply means approve of God. Like you always hear me say, it just means stamp of authenticity. We know, he said, there will be no more prophets, there will be no more progress. So, the Arabs, he said they had their last prophet. Muhammad, Jesus had his last prophet, and it's, significant that no prophet has ever appeared to them again. But this don't apply to the so-called backward heathen and savage people who had no last prophet. He was referring to our people. And then he said, we consider Drew Ali as a prophet, even though Paul Nathaniel Johnson say he was the first prophet of our moon. But he was a student of the prophet, and he showed that he still honored him. So I had a picture where I posted him from 2020. The other picture I posted was from 2019. Here's this guy, Fatty Abdat, talking about, where do you get this lovely photo from? So these people been watching my pages, family, because y'all know I put all my information in Facebook. I don't hide nothing. I throw the information out there for our people to see it all the time. You see? So we give honors to Brother Paul Nathaniel Johnson for, even though he started his own movement, he still honored our prophet. And they got their little card that they have saying they got respect for all prophets. They don't quarrel with people over religion, and so forth and so on. But then we had the Moorish Zionist temple, and they give credit to more than one person as the founder. They say in some aspects that Rabbi Jacobs was the leader. Then some say Mordecai Herman was the leader, or Rabbi Ford. All of these fathers of the Moorish Zionist temple, whichever one of them be the founder, this temple is connected to our holy prophet. And furthermore, these are the men that the Hebrew Israelites evolved out of. And so this upset, a particular brother when I was demonstrating, because the brother felt slighted because I said Rabbi Ford and them, basically, they were Moors, and that the Hebrew Israelite concept come up out of that really upset the brother. All I'm doing is telling the truth. And he had never heard that before, but he was mad. And truth can have shock value to it. And it'll cause our people to be upset when they hear something that shake their foundation. When all the while you've been teaching opposition to a people and find out who your dad is. So yeah, the Moorish Zionist temple came out of this first schism as well. This is the first day. You got Rabbi Ford here standing before the same Moorish Zionist temple. He was a part of it. He was also a Garveyite that also promoted Islamic teaching. even as a garment. That was the thing about the Moorish Zionist temple. They had a respect for Islam. We can't make this stuff up, family. So Rabbi Ford, you can see him with his turban on here, you know, and I got links down there that go into the history of the Moorish Zionist temple. You know, Rabbi Ford was also affiliated with the Ahmadiyya movement too. Then you have Suleiman here, co-founder of the Canaanite temple with the prophet, and then he is the founder of the Mecca Medina temple. He was out here trying to teach Mohammedan masonry. You know, so that's where him and the prophet came into conflict. We find out that it mentions Yehoshua will come again, our holy prophet, as being, you know, the great prophet. You know, and this is referred to in more than one area. But it says Suleiman was close to the great prophet. So we know who the great prophet is. So they had those who were trying to make conflict and say, oh yeah, the prophet was a Mason because of his hand shake. You know, but they've been shaking hands in Samaria and Kemet for over thousands of years. So the hand clasp of unity originates from our prophet. Now, the last living member of the Canaanite temple made an assertion that the prophet was, you know, affiliated with the Odd Fellows. We can't find no proof for this, you know, or him being a Mason. He never said that in that document I have, because it's in here too. It was a brother who was interviewing this last Canaanite member, and he put, you know, brackets there. Anytime you put brackets there, that's something that you added in that the person didn't say. So he never said the prophet was a Mason, but he did say the prophet was an Odd Fellow because he was around them. See, just because the prophet was a barbershop full of people that was a part of these things, a person there may have figured, oh, well, he one of the fellows. The prophet could have been one of the fellows, so to speak. You see? But there's no proof of that other than when we look at the symbolism in two things that we find in our Moorish doctrine, and that is the all-seeing eye with the hand clasp, and under it is friendship, love, and truth. That's a symbol of the Odd Fellows. We can't deny that. That's the same symbol like we have in our particular teaching. But guess what? The Odd Fellows, if he was one, is not a Mason. And we got a Masonic site right here where it got some Odd Fellows sitting up there, and they say, offended, too bad. These are actually Odd Fellows. You just had a knee-jerk reaction based on ignorance. And I have a link that when you click on the bottom of it, it's going to lead you to their page, and they're going to tell you clearly that Odd Fellows are not Masons, and nor are they affiliated with Mason. Now, you might have a Mason that be an Odd Fellow, but the Odd Fellows organization is not Masonic. They are called what you call a benevolent society, not Masonic. You know, so if the prophet was an Odd Fellow, he still wasn't a Mason. But like I say, only thing we can see is the signs and the symbols that are similar from that. And that don't take nothing away from the prophet. That don't take nothing away from him. But like I said, you don't have document to prove it. Like I said, the prophet could have just been in that meeting, you know, and it was a lot of them around him, as he was always surrounded by different brothers that was a part of different little organizations like the Pythian Knights, and they was all around the prophet in the Canaanite temple and the Moorish temple. Everybody that got some sense know that. Most of our people belong to them type of organizations. So I had created a comparative chart. I never really pulled this out on those other places where I've demonstrated this PDF. I never got to this point. This comparative chart is dealing with Noble Drew Ali versus Dr. Hamid Suleiman. You know, and it actually shows, you know, their time frame. The prophet between 1913 up to 1929. Suleiman 1922 up to 1940. Because he wasn't seen after that, but 1922 is when they began to talk about Suleiman. you see that the prophet under his measure in 1913, we tied him to 181 Warren Street, Newark, New Jersey, 1913. Canaanite temple. Suleiman wasn't nowhere to be found, even though, like I said in our history, it said he was a co-founder. He's not mentioned in the time period, though, or in the literature. Suleiman begins to be mentioned in 1922. And when he surfaces, he's trying to promote his Mecca Medina Masonic temple. And that's where him and the prophet fell out at. You see? So when, in fact, Suleiman, was also convicted of raping, I think, 2 daughters, of some of the members of the Canaanite temple. So when the prophet left, they reincorporated the Canaanite temple in 1924. I got the original corporation papers in here as well. So that was not the first Canaanite temple, and that's where they're getting it confused at. And if Suleiman was affiliated with them, that's the Canaanite temple. And it don't even say his name in the corporation, so we really can't even say he was a part of that. Somebody that is able to refute this will have to bring this paperwork to the manifest where Suleiman was the prophet teachers, or any of the teaching the prophet had came from him. You can't do it. And I put it to rest with this information right here. So the prophet predated Suleiman when it comes to the teaching aspect. If he was present, nobody really knowed he was present until he surfaced talking about Muhammad and Mason. So we showed the newspaper from 1916 up to 1922 referring to our prophet as Dr. Thomas Drew, the Egyptian adept. Suleiman wasn't nowhere to be found. And he was only, again, when he surfaced in 1922 after the prophet had left, Newark, New Jersey, according to the last Canaanite member. He said he seen the prophet, and after 1922, he didn't see him no more. And then he was hollering, Suleiman was hollering, he was a teacher of the 96 degrees, as a Mecca high priest. Ain't no 96 right in no Mecca. And the one that was established in Egypt. And it wasn't what he established, because he established his Mecca Medina temple over here. So how could the prophet have been a part of that when they had parted ways by the time he had established that? Because we got record of the time that Suleiman, incorporated his Mecca Medina temple of free and operate masons, and then started trying to challenge the Europeans in Prince Hall. Caesar R. Blake was the one that rejected his deposit. So we have all that in here, and we done established the proto-Moorish identity of Canaan taught by the prophet. Suleiman wasn't teaching nothing about Canaan. You can't find it. So stop listening to them lies. So the key takeaways in this is the temple priority, Drew Ali, predates Suleiman by a decade in both teaching and institutional founding. Doctrinal origination, Drew Ali authored the foundational doctrine of the Canaanite temple. Suleiman worked within the framework of this doctrine, its co-founder. Institutional foundation, Drew Ali's Canaanite temple is the first organized Moorish institution. Public authority, Drew Ali was publicly recognized during his lifetime. Suleiman's authority comes after. So that's what we establish here. So y'all will see it when y'all get it. I ain't gonna read all this other stuff in here, because like I said, I'm trying to get through this, and I'm trying to do it by 9, but the significant things I'm putting out. Here's another measure about Suleiman, that speaks of him giving a lecture, and Deuce Muhammad Ali, Arthur Schomburg, and John Edwards Bruce, who was friends with Deuce Muhammad Ali, which you'll see in the next picture. They were present at this meeting, and it was a meeting of Shriners and Masons, and Hamid Suleiman was pushing his Masonic demonstration. You see him here with this Mecca fez on his head, and pay attention to that because he was questioned about this. You see the fez that he had on his head. Here's the meeting again. It shows him. Actually, I had a picture of the meeting. We got W.E. Du Bois, our brother Marcus Garvey was present. Arthur Schomburg is in the picture again. There was a couple of people that was there. You know, there's a picture of Arthur Schomburg, who actually they named the Schomburg Library about, where you can find most of the history on our people. That's John Edwards Bruce with Deuce Ali in the picture there. John Edwards Bruce and Deuce Ali was both Masons. This is the burial of John Edwards Bruce. And you see Marcus Garvey there attending. You see the Masons with their thing there. Arthur Schomburg again. Same people that was at the meeting. In this particular picture that I'm showing here, for those who see it, they have, and I found this one a while ago, and they end up using this too, them old ruffians up there. You know, Dr. Abdul Hamid Suleiman, who questions the legitimacy of the Western shrines, High Egyptian Mason. And it says, first of all, Suleiman, and it says high priest embarrassed, first of all. It says Suleiman exhibited his Mohammedan fez to the reporter. It is the one he was wearing in the when photographed. You've seen it with the Mecca on it. It's hard to see it in this one, but it's the same fez. The Mecca with the scimitar and the bingo claws and the star. And it says, that is the fez I wore for 15 years as high priest in Mecca, said Suleiman. But why is the word Mecca embroidered in English letters? The reporter asked. If it was made to be worn in Arabia at Mecca, well, no unbeliever is allowed instead of being embroidered with Arabic characters in the Quran, which you just showed me. Suleiman gulped a few times. Uh-oh, this moment he knew he had done messed up. So Mecca is an Arabic word, Suleiman quickly said, and hurried away from the subject. And later the fez was identified positively from the photograph by a well-known white Shriner, John A. Morrison, one of the founders of the Shriners for the European, as a regular fez of the New York Mecca Shrine of legitimate white Shriners. So he was wearing the shrine fez of the European, the Mecca Shrine. So next to it, we have a head of a Detroit Muslim Association, on the other hand. And this Muslim, not a Shriner, Hamid Meshrif, it was said that he was an executive of all the Muslim societies in Detroit. You know, and they said he arranged, you know, a meeting amongst these ones. I want to say it looked like October the 3rd down there. But he has a fez on, you know, with a crescent and a star with a scimitar above it. Looked like a Shriner's fez, but it's Arabic words that are written under the symbol. He also has a sash on, and you can see Arabic characters on the sash. This is a Muslim now, not a Shriner. But he looked like he have on what would be normally called Masonic regalia, but he's the head of the Muslim Detroit Association. So Suleiman got exposed right there, and him saying that he was, you know, the high priest of Mecca. The only person had a high title I seen around that time that Suleiman could have been on the manifest was the Grand Sharif of Mecca, you know, which was Hassan Saeed Hussein bin Ali, which I'm showing up here, you know, but you don't see Suleiman nowhere there either. So we have the incorporation document here, you know, of the second Canaanite temple, which they label as Canaanite temple number 1. The prophet and Samuel Dixon, who was mentioned here, you know, they got into an argument about Islam, you know, and Christianity, you know, and that's how they end up having the temple, because the prophet left Newark, New Jersey after that, according to the last living Canaanite member. He said they got into it, but he said Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the original teacher in that temple. And Samuel Dixon, which we read about in our examination, you know, Dixon Barbershop, you know, he was the second person in charge teaching. You know, when the prophet left, that left them, and they incorporated this temple as Canaanite number 1. So I got the information I had because it's hard to read. You know, I brought forth the information, and it's crazy because in the first point of their charter, and this is after the prophet left, it says the purpose, or they say of, or for which this corporation is formed, is for the purpose of religious worship and teaching of religion, Muslim of Islam. So when they reincorporated this, you know, somebody was talking about teaching Islam, and it got all the names of the people there in this particular mess. So all this was a part of the first schism. All of this was part of the first schism, family. You know, so it's brought forth the reason why, you know, our holy prophet had told us, and we already know. We got the picture up here when when George Washington pretty much, you know, made the statement, if we agree to take the fezzes and turbans off of the Moors' heads and remove sandals from their feet, you know, and enforce severe punishment, and also swear death oaths between ourselves to religiously and faithfully not allow anyone to teach the Moorish children who they really are and who their forefathers were, and only show the Moorish children to be taught that they were truly Negroes, black people, and colored folks 200 years from the day the Moorish people would not know their nationality, nor the national name of their forefathers. And also they would not know from whence land or ancestors that they are descended from. So the prophet asked the question, what shall we call them? You know, we done been given many names, Negro, black, colored, and everything. He asked, you know, did not these people have a name based on the land they come from? And you see him standing with his hand on the Holy Quran. And there's a symbology to this because we have Abraham Lincoln when he was an attorney defending a brother, and he was telling him, I say my client may be a Moor, but he's not a Negro. So there's symbolism the prophet is pointing to here. So I showed various different connections between certain Moors that were significant in our history. You know, like the brother Angelo Solomon, and you can see that he has his turban is here, and they got feathers that will be put in the turban, but he have three symbols that we have on our charters, you know, as we, you know, our divine, not charter, but divine ministry document, you know, and it is, you know, the pyramids and also the lion. These symbols are there, but that was some of the symbolism that Angelo Solomon had. And he is a brother that they actually said was the father of pure Masonic thought, where the European got it from, you know, in over there in Vina. You know, we don't hide nothing from our people. But the significance of Angelo Solomon, he was a child taken into slavery as a Moor and he ended up growing to prominence in Vienna, you know. And also you had the one known as the Prince Among Thieves, Abdur-Rahman, the first Moorish prince to actually be freed based upon his Moorish nationality. We got the document called the Moorish Prince, Abdur-Rahman. These are actual papers. And in these papers, we found out that they had some type of gathering in a lodge where he was freed from slavery, you know, and his family received, but he redeemed himself by saying he was a Moor. He was also a Moorish brother. It ain't no doubt in my mind that our prophet was familiar with a lot of this history. So Western Freemasonry has always entwined or crept its way up around our people in some type of way. They always been there, almost like the spook that sat by the door, not in a good way. You know, so you shouldn't be surprised at these things, Moors. But now that we reached the point of getting to the second day of the second schism, the prophet said, for a good reason, don't let any of those foreign Muslims get up on your roster. And this was because of what he ran into. This is what he ran into. You see? So when we go into the second schism, as we go into it, we first established that the prophet made a statement, I was given a high name over there in Mecca, but you can't use it over here. Be good Moors and I will hand it down to you. So we know he wasn't talking about the name Noble Drew Ali. He wasn't giving that name in Mecca. He wasn't talking about Thomas or Timothy Drew. So if he had a high name to pass down to the good Moors, then surely it will be another name. And that name is El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali. El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali actually represents his journey. Hajj represents his journey into Mecca, the holy city. Sharif, given to him, you know, by the Saud family, which means noble. Abdul, servant of humanity. You see? Abdul, not a slave. You know, so all of that represents Saudi Arabia. And coming back into the West is where he received the name Ali, but by the Moroccan government, along with the garb that he wore. So his name solidifies his Hajj. But if he said he was given a high name over there, but you can't use it over here, be good Moors, and I will hand it down to you. His good Moors were the adepts that he made. And we received that high name from our brother German Bey, you know, through our chairman. You see what I'm saying? And that we had a name, just like the Masons claim the lost word of Freemasonry, we had a name that's lost to other Moors because they didn't come through the lineage. So all of those who fight us about the name are those who didn't come from the lineage, ironically. They came through the lineage of those who was fighting against the prophet. So of course they wouldn't have this name. They wasn't good Moors. But in their own eyes, you know, like our brother Muhammad Bey say, you know, they so sincere, like they standing for the prophet, but they sincerely wrong. Because they ain't standing for the prophet. They come through the lineage of those who help do harm to our prophet. Unfortunate. We don't say this to mock them. We just letting them know why they don't have what we have. Why they didn't have the adept degrees that we have. They come through a different lineage. So when you hear people saying the stuff they saying, that wasn't his name, because they didn't come through the lineage. German Bey was made an adept by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I Cook Bey, G Cook Bey, Pearl Drew Ali, you know, were made adepts by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Let that marinate a bit. So, you know, another evidence we have is the enemy of the prophet, Sadi Majid. As we showed you before, he went over there, and this is a part of the fatwa that they got. This is just a clip out of it. He said that the prophet said, this is what he witnessed him saying. He said, what say you may your virtue about a man currently living called Noble Drew Ali? That's what he said. Who is this man you call Yehoshua? The meaning of this name being the prophet who is linked to the house of prophecy, Ali, alleging he is the prophet promised at the end of time, who was announced by Jesus, upon whom peace, and who composed the book called the Holy Quran, meaning the Holy Quran is the Holy Quran which was revealed at Mecca to our Lord Muhammad, upon whom be peace and blessings, or blessings and peace. However, there is not to be found in his book of his any surah of the Quran. He said, thirdly, that the Islam that was before him was not true Islam. He claimed that he had garnered his knowledge in the city of Fez. He heard the prophet say this, and that he had met with the leaders in the Islamic religion there in Egypt. He heard the prophet say this. The Hijaz in Iraq, and all the scholars had testified that he is the prophet promised at the end time. And he began to preach this to the world. Then he said the secret of his prophet was Jesus, peace be upon him. His adoption of Islam was in former times that he had hidden this from the world. See, they had hidden this from the world. The prophet said these keys were held back. So we know Sadi Majid heard the prophet say this. Then he said the object of worship in Islam has no eye with which it sees, no intelligence with which it reasons, and no not any ear with which it hears, and nor does it have power. It is nothing but fantasy shot through with hocus pocus. This made Sadi Majid feel like I make some people feel. He went all the way to Egypt to get a fatwa against the prophet after that. And he was the one that caused Lomax Bey to defect, along with Sheikh Ibn Dawood, who Malachi York claimed is his teacher. You know, and then the other schisms came behind that. You know, you had the NOI, you had Brown L, you know, which is known as Abdul Muhammad, one of the first people that went with Farad Muhammad. He was actually the brother that was over Temple number 8, I want to say, if Pine Bluff, Arkansas. He was the brother. You know, we see Elijah Muhammad Elijah Poole Bay. We see the adept record. Y'all done seen that. We see Farad in front of him at our Prophet's Convention meeting, family. You know, and Elijah even say this in the Theology of Time. So yeah, we got pictures of Farad on the Mehmed Beta Allah Temple of Islam, the book of lessons that I had from the NOI, where the NOI admits in this document, you know, that as Farad taught his doctrine, he began to make converts from Noble Drew Ali's followers and Marcus Garvey's followers. So the first resurrection of the NOI came from the UNIA and the MST of it. That's why they membership. We got proof even in the questionnaire. Moorish Holy Temple of Science questionnaire has the teaching that the NOI taught before that about the Europeans being roped off, as they call it. You know, so yeah, these are all the schisms. With your Kirkman Bay, you see he up here, and I'm even ready to open up the floor more. Which book did the prophet say the MST of A derived this power from? Because you got those who talking about ecclesiastical law, talking about a body politic, trying to act like they're Roman Catholics. You got paramilitary law. Then you got theocratic law. So they talking about her statutes and Robert's rules of order. But where did the prophet say that the MST of A derived his power and authority from? From the Grand Quran of Muhammad. So why are they out here trying to make it sit? They quote her statutes and Robert's rules of order like the Arab quote the Hadith. You know, so here we see Brother Turner L's charter for his temple, Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Divine and National Movement, who was real close with the Prince of Peace. He was doing international work, and Turner L and the Prince of Peace was the reason Morocco gained their independence too. You see on the bottom of this demonstration, he got the scimitar and the stock as a seal. And you see that his symbols are the same as the symbols on our divine ministry document. Same exact symbols. We can't make this up. So we see that Turner L was tied to that lineage. Like I say, he was close to the Prince of Peace. We got Ishmael Sampson of the tribe of Shabazz, was born in Arkansas, May 1st. He was a member of the MST of A under the teachings of the prophet, and he started his own group, the Universal Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Islam of America. And he calling himself, even after he started that, a member of the tribe of Shabazz after he had left the prophet. You see, so these are many different people who are the children of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, whether the people know it or not. You know, so after all of that being said, family, in closing, we also had the brother William Gravidale, who was the father of Captain Yusuf Shah, on the one that was over Malcolm X detail. You know, he was a brother that was actually in New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey, because that's where he's from. Temple number 10. You know, he was a member of the temple. His father was. And he actually told Elijah, he gave his Elijah, his son, to aid and assist because they knew each other from the temple. You know, so we see how Lomax Bey came back as El Sadim Muhammad, trying to demonstrate what he was demonstrating on the Adini Allah demonstration, talking about he a Hamitic Arab, and he came back teaching Arab, but he went against the prophet. You know, so R. German Bey, who came into the movement in 1926, was made adept by the prophet. He did his work, and that's the lineage we come through. You see, that's him and Turner L. This is the information you're talking about. You know, them helping Morocco gain independence. We got the chairman in the mayor's seat. We see the chairman with the adepts and German Bey right there, from MST of A membership to MAG citizenship, age of preparation and fulfillment. We got the paperwork from when the chairman was there. And when I Cook Bey told the chairman to stand on the Constitution, see, I mean Cook Bey, G. Cook Bey, George, his brother, he instructed Pleasant Bey to basically take this charter and stand on it as the prophet is standing on it, and you would do well. So that's how the prophet got, the chairman got the charter to Temple number 13. A real charter that has the prophet's signature on it. Can't nail another Moor claim that. And that's what I ask these Moors that be trying to challenge the Moorish American government. Show me your charter. We even got a brother that wrote a book. He wasn't a Moor. And just so happened I found the information. He ran into the brother German Bay, and German Bay taught him how to use his mind to move things with his mind. This a random dude talking. You know, the book is called Growing Up Poor. He said he kept sitting there and doing what German Bay told him, and he seen the object move. It's a random person. So, you know, so when you look at our demonstration, when we talk about the ancient Egyptian Moorish writer, the mystic crypts of Misraim, that's all in our teaching. It's all there. The symbols that we have, you know, they are right here in the same charter that the prophet had. You know, we can't make this stuff up, people. Our scimitar and star come from Kemet. Everything that we have indirectly come from Kemet. That's why we talk about Kemet. You see? All in the Orishas teaching. We can see that scimitar and star. So make no mistake about it. Islamism without the schism is this Moorish American government and divine wisdom on the manifest. We have been acknowledged. We have been recognized. This is the third day. They destroyed the temple. But in this third day, dealing with this third generation, it has been rebuilt. So when you look at all the symbols and symbolism that we have, it all come from our ancestors, and we are the fathers of it. Even the journey of Muhammad, going through the heaven, is symbolic to the way we ride our camel of endurance, whether we know it or not. You know, so we all trying to make our way to seventh heaven and be who it is that we were born to be. All our teaching can be traced back to a source. You know, the senior course, from the black fez to the red fez to the white fez degrees, you know, all of this goes back to ancient Kemet. And even the prophet's gestures that they try to say was Masonic, you know, like the hand over the heart, all of that stuff come up out of Kemet. Didn't come from no European. I'm going to send it to y'all in this information, but let me open up the floor now, because I know it's only going to be a few that speak anyway. That's why I extended the time. You know, and also I showed pictures about these fezzes too. You know, like Kirkman Bay marking his fez when the prophet told him not to. You know, you got the Clock of Destiny Moors did the same thing. They were trying to imitate the Shriners. While all the while the Shriners try to imitate them. And their last Shriners temple was found in Carolinas. Guess what they named it? Ali. I wonder why. So like we can't make this stuff up, family. You know, but yeah, I'm gonna stop right there. You know, a lot of the rest of the stuff you can go over and see, you know, in due time, but I'm gonna send that out to the Moors. So what I'm gonna do at this time, I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'm finna open up the floor to our family, to our Moorish kin. Islamism without the schism. Star 6 your phone, Moors, and speak if you want to speak. Islam, brother Justice Elbe.
It's praise Allah, honor to our holy prophet, overdraw, and honor to you, National Sister Grand Chief, the outside for the great class, and honor to the entire Act One. As always, special honor to our National Grand Chief and our National Grand Chairman, North America, are empowered to make law, enforce law, with the assistance of the prophet and the grand body of North America. And honor to our host tonight, our National Assistant Grand Chief, because the Assistant Grand Chief is to assist Grand Chief in our affairs and lives according to law to peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the citizen of North America. Well, you know, the prophet did say, I brought you everything, take you save the nation. I take it, say that. He said, get you thinking, you say, you know, so I'm going to jump right into it. I just need about 2 or 3 minutes due to the time. You know, when you started off the class, you said Professor Drew has been a student of learning. And praise Allah, this is so true. Praise Allah for our holy prophet Noble Drew Ali, just being a divine and safe angels. You know, you talked about a little bit. You talked about you may tear the temple down, and in 3 days it arouse the gift again. Well, you know, that's a long time, sir. When you think about it, that's 3 days, 7 days a year, and it's 3 days here. And you know, just look at on the a year. And you know, this is where you know, we're talking about building the temple back up, but when you're looking at it from the spiritual and physical, this is where each and every degree has to be put in its proper place. We talking about that. When you're looking at this temple here itself, it has no strength because flesh and bone cannot think and reason without you. Once you get to thinking and knowing who made you, Allah, the great God of the universe, things then begin to open up and you're able to come and put the degrees where they're supposed to be put at so that you can raise up again. In other words, that temple be built up again. And when it comes to the physical temple, this still coming from within you. Because this plan is made from within, and when you open your mouth, then the plan is put on paper. Then it comes to the physical part of it is then being built, and it's still coming from within you. So it ain't strange when they're talking about rebuilding the temple. But the rebuilding the temple in 3 days, we're talking about self. Who made you, Allah, the great God of the universe, and this only if you're faithful. You mentioned quickly about Yehoshua, was strong. Yes, Yehoshua is strong, and he's strong and a stronger more, because when they went to Yehoshua with foolishness, he walked away, and this is what we're supposed to do when Moors come at us with foolishness. You talked a little bit about that, the behavior of Moors and how they was going at one, and this had happened here in the Moorish government with the leadership, the sheikh and the chairman demonstrated of being about your father's business, dropping it and keep it moving, because there's going to be more with that type of behavior and attitude toward Act 1 and other Moors in the government that is truly faithful. Then you talked a little bit about the bird. The bird wants to free himself, and I'm sure that's the same with us. We want to free ourselves here. That's why we're here. But see, we had to have there was a divine plan set for us to learn to love instead of hate, learn how to free ourselves. And I can only imagine, just kind of quickly with this bird, that he had some spiritual thought of truth had come across him. And he had been outside many times, and he wanted to free himself. So he probably figured that I can squeeze through, but there's a few things I need to do. That he had to elevate his thinking, and he probably had to lose just a little bit of weight. They're already being small, but just small enough to squeeze through. And see, this is just like us getting a little bit above our neck, so that we can get to that degree. We can remind ourselves of who made us, who made you, Allah, the great God of the universe. And you see what we're doing. We are setting ourselves free, claiming our nationality, divine creed, knowing who made Allah, the great God of the universe, and this place found within the heart, and knowing that Allah said the holy prophet, no withdrawal, least follow earth for salvation. And you see, there's those who have sold out the prophet. And this has been demonstrated, like you said, with Act 1 of the Moorish American government, finding some kind of excuses to pull down and pull everyone off their square so they can say, see, I told you so. But it's all good. You talked about some that can bring harm, mental, physical, their behavior. And at the same time, I looked at those who claim the little Allah, the great God of the universe. It used to be some of the common people that claim that they love Allah and the prophet. But many of them, they don't really mean it. That's been proven many times right here in the Moorish American government. You spoke about the behavior of those in the temple and all that falsehood and truth that they were demonstrating. When you talk about Yehoshua, who you call divine? Who is this Yehoshua you call divine? Then the prophet said, Yehoshua will come again. All we have to do is listen closely and read between the lines. Praise Allah. We have to read closely and read between the lines. And anything that's true and divine, I say anything that's true and divine, when we talk about the MHTOS, Moorish Holy Temple sign, I could just only think of flesh and bone that have to get in order because flesh and bone cannot think of reason, but not you, the spirit. And we know that these temples was just a teaching entity when the Holy Prophet Noble came in, because he said, I saw Sunday school come the guides of a nation. And see, they're still trapped in those temple now, assuming that that's the government, assuming that it's the right way to go because they didn't listen to the prophet. But you also said, when you say you heard the voice of our holy prophet, prepare to see your king. Prepare to see your king. You're not going to be able to see anything if you're not getting these holy divine lessons, getting behind the holy prophet, noble drawly, and being sincere. You can wear many decorated fez and wear many fez you want. As the prophet said, wear the red fez on. You can wear as many you want to. But unless that you have fixed that was above the neck, truly loving Allah and the holy prophet, noble drawly, and obeying the holy prophet, noble drawly, it's not going to matter. I'm going to be too quick on this, sir. You know, when you talked about the temple. The temple was built by man. Yes, it was. But it was a conscious spirit, the reason the temple was built by man. A conscious spirit where each degree, as I said earlier, was filled, and every degree was filled. You cannot just go and build anything unless you yourself has completed you yourself from within. That you have strengthened yourself from within and being faithful, getting the laws and lessons. You getting the laws and lessons, you have the plan. To build the spiritual temple as well as the physical temple. The prophet said, I took the cover off of all secrets. He did. Let's go for all of the ones that running out portraying the prophet, calling themselves a Mason, claiming that they have some kind of power. And if you look at the truth of what have many of them today doing this, and what power do they have? None. They don't even know who made them. None. Don't even have a nationality. And don't even have a nationality. Don't even have a race. Don't even know what it means. All they can do is assume what the European have given permission to say. Moses is still, as he was talking about, going around lying on the prophet with books and all types of literature. I've seen some of this literature, and they still distributing it out. And then what do the prophet have to hide from? Really? Nothing. Our holy prophet, the one that came by the earth of salvation, and praise Allah for our holy draw, learning these laws and lessons and learning and bringing all this to us. Took time to gather it all up, knowing there was going to be some ifs and buts, and maybe there was going to be some resistance against him, someone that's sitting up to the point where they won't even harm and hurt the prophet. But you can't kill a holy prophet. You can't kill a God. You can't kill even us. Who made us? Allah, the great God of the universe. And I start right there, so I just want to say, I don't see you for the class night, and a great and very powerful class. Still much more to learn. Praise Allah for you. So it's on the peace.
In Islam, brother Justice, all is well. Praise be to Allah. All right, next more. Islam, brother.
Oh, it's a pop class. Islam, Sister National Grand Seat, Grand Class. I don't get that much time. This is Sean Washington, M.O. Tuck, Rabeo from the Michigan Territories. I rise and give all praise to the great God Allah. Do honors to Sharif Adu Ali, the last prophet of all times. Give all honors to the dead credit government, 12 departments. Give all honors to the dead credit Morse government flag. Give all honors to the divine constitution, Act 4, Act 5. I give all honors to the prophet's lessons, the Zoom of the Nation, 101s, 102s, and the book Ali. Hey, I wanted to speak on something. This is a good class. It's real interesting. Like all these, the prophet, he did not incorporate this, the temple, and I didn't know I didn't know it was a Canaanite temple. Somebody else started it. The Moors was under the prophet. That was good. That's good. That's a real good, grand question right there.
Islam, more, let me correct you. If you listen to the demonstration, didn't nobody start the Canaanite temple but the prophet. Those who came behind the prophet established another Canaanite temple, Islam.
Oh, that's what I was saying. I was on the same page you were saying, but he started the first, and they came after him. the Moors was under him. That's why, yeah, you're right. I was right on the same page with you. You know, all these people that mark their fairs, Kirk and Bale and all of them, they was children under the prophet. You know, like what's his name? The Moor, Joseph, Rabbi Adam Joseph Ford. I got the book called. It says National Order Today. All garbage, rosters, black and national Pan Africans. He, you know, these Hebrews, they came under the designers. You know, that's where they came from. And those, you know, the Hebrews, like it's something crossing over. But they was the real Jews, the Zionist Moors. You know, he went over there to Abyssinia. He participated and, you know, with Emperor Haile Selassie created a school and he acquired 800 acres of land of the purpose of uniting black, I ain't gonna say black, but the Moor Jews. Yeah, I got all this stuff, but yeah, it's a real good class. All these other, like Nation of Islam, and you know, they was all children under the prophet. You know, everybody came under him. You know, and then he went upstairs. It was a barbershop down there. They didn't disagree, and he didn't like what the prophet was saying. You know, and they couldn't, you know, they couldn't get along with each other. And then, you know, he went to Arabia. He got Sharif Abdul Ali over there. He went to the Kingdom of Morocco. You know, he brought everything back to us as he didn't say Masons and all these other former people, you know, these people selling out. He said we was Moorish American Muslims. He didn't say nothing else, you know. Then the Nation of Islam, that's a Turkish flag. And they you know, they borrowed it, they adapted, you know, they let them, you know, and they're using it. You know what I'm saying? The prophet ain't bringing that. You know, that's over there across the ocean. That's over there in Turkey. There's so much confusion out here, you know, on our people right now. You know, all these Masons and Eastern Stars, you got Three Fields and Hebrew Israelites, you know, Nubians, you know, and when he left the Soul Plant, everybody ran. Like I know about they started the Muhammad Temple, the Nation of Islam. And you know, after he left the Soul Plant, they ran and started their own organization, you know, and they got it from the prophet when he started the temple. That was the school of thought for us, and we supposed to kept it moving. You know, I was reading that last night. It's supposed to have been a national Moorish movement, but they made that a club, organization. That's in the Book of Fire. And I was thinking about that yesterday. But, you know, powerful class, peace and love, Islam.
Islam, peace and love. We just have to remember, he said in the year 2000, you know, that Moors 50, you know, to 60 years when he know what he brought him. So all of that happened in between that time with the different organizations, you know, wasn't doing nothing but laying a foundation for us to come forth. You know, so we don't beat our people up, you know, or slander them because of what they done, because some of them were sincere. They were just sincerely wrong. You know, we are talking about Islamism without the schism. You know, we ain't out here to speak radical against nobody. You know, but, you know, we just here to bring the truth. So next more, Islam.
Islam. Islam, can you hear me, grand man?
Where my sister Dendra at? I know she gonna come up in here. Y'all can hesitate.
Islam.
There she go. Islam.
Islam.
You got your
Islam, can you hear me?
up? Yeah, I say you got your
Gratitude.
Okay, Islam.
Gratitude. Islam. Didn't you need to debate
First, let me rise and give praises to our great God, Allah. Give honor to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Give honor to Act One. I give honor to all my government officials. And I give honor to you, God, man, for this powerful class tonight. So glad you're going to send us that link. This was a powerful class. And you may tear the tipper down, and in 3 days, it will be built again. And the only thing, because like the chairman say, it don't take long to tell the truth. And I'm just going to say, ye men of Israel, hear this man who is more than a man. Take heed to what you do. I have myself heard Yehoshua speak, and all the winds were still. And if for those who have ears to hear, the places where I say Israel and Yehoshua, if you have ears to hear, you know who I'm talking about. Islam, gratitude, God, man, for letting me share. Peace and love.
Islam, gratitude for the messages. You know, and Marvin Edwards Bay, I sent it to you in your inbox, brother. So if you can, take that link and send it to the Moors. You know, in the reply email that you got the link to this screenshot. All you got to do is go and drop it in there and hit reply to all. Send the PDF to them. But is there any other more? Islam?
No, I was just replying to what you were saying, because that was, you know, that list of all of the Moors that you sent it out to, right?
Yeah. You only got to copy this. All you got to take the link to that PDF. When you download it, I send it into your inbox. You just take that link and then copy it. You know how you copy attachments to an email? You just gonna go where I hit reply all, and then you should be able to send it to everybody in the list just about it. You ain't got to copy all the list. You know, unless you want to manually copy it. But, you know, you just hit reply to all.
Well, I was kind of like,
go ahead.
I was trying to figure out, because you sent me one in my email. You talking about
no, I sent it to you in Facebook. I sent you the PDF in Facebook. But what I'm saying, I'm talking about the link that I sent you to get on the panel. You know where you can get in there and reply to somebody in that link?
Right.
You can hit reply to all and drop that PDF in there, and it'll go to everybody. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Okay, I got it. Okay, I do that.
Yes,
but a powerful class.
Oh yeah, Islamism without the
and I will. Yeah, I just wanted to say, this is Dr. Marvin. That was very praise and honor that we're given. I just wanted to say that. You connected a lot of dots, so to speak. You know what I mean? You brought the history, a lot of things that we didn't know. You know what I mean? Like we were speaking about earlier, like all of those schisms was because those Moors didn't come through the lineage. You know, and so they trying to protect, or however you want to put it, something that they don't even really know how it even came about. You know, because after the prophet left, a whole lot of stuff went down. You know what I mean? Praise Allah that our chairman, you know what I mean, was able to pick up the pieces, so to speak. You know what I mean? But they more than pieces. You know what I mean? He brought the whole demonstration back. You know, and so this is where it's at here in this Morris American government. But gratitude, God, man, for all you do, all your due diligence, you know, making sure that the Moors get it right. I just say gratitude for that. Islam and peace.
Islam and peace. Yeah, what the chairman did, he didn't raise us up with a lion's paw or eagle's claw. You know, he raised us up with what, you know, the Grand Quran called, you know, in Surah 85, Ayat 12, you know, very strong is the grip of thy Lord, Allah. You know what I mean? That's what he raised us up with, holding intact. Islam. Well, all right, I hear somebody got the line open. Islam.
Yes, I'm National Sister Grand Sheik, Grand Class. Islam family, this is Dr. Joe Hamid Muhammad Day of the South Carolina Council, and we give praise to our Father God Allah, honor to his holy prophet, our holy prophet, honor to our Moorish American government and our Moorish American nation, honor to all those that have opened up the way for this class, this Moorish perspective class this evening, honor to those that have spoken before me and those that will speak after me, and honor to absolutely everything more. As always, grand magnanimous presentation and demonstration. I'm not going to speak long. You know, there are things that are so very prolific that the prophet spoke of himself and profound. You know, one of the first things that resonated with me in your presentation, my brother, is when the prophet said that the preachers and the masons would be the last to come in or come home. And then here is what we would say the nail, the hammer that nailed it. And then he said, they will fight me tooth and nail, but they cannot win. Now, I don't know how in the world a brother or a sister that calls themselves a follower and adherent to the teaching of our beloved Holy Prophet Noble Ali cannot comprehend those words. They will fight me. Those are not words of camaraderie. Those are not words, right, of love and brotherhood. They are words of exactly what the prophet said. War, opposition, resentment, deceitfulness. The next thing is, the prophet said, if you are honest, oaths are not necessary. So now, one has to ask themselves, I had to ask myself, why would the prophet make a statement like this? Well, those of us that know, we know that this statement is in direct connection to those who have adopted the Masonic rite, that oath of secrecy. See, there's no honesty in that. Finally, the prophet said, the prophet said, right, those that were with me, now he's speaking in the spirit of Yehoshua. This is very profound. Those that were with me 2,000 years ago are with me today. And those that were against me 2,000 years ago are against me today. Here's the nail in the sinker, right? And like you said, Grandman, we are not trying to distribute any hate against any of our brothers and sisters. We're all about making it plain in terms of presenting the truth. Nowhere in the ancient script symbolism and writings of our ancient Cometian ancestors and masters can you find where they ever identified or used the word Mason or Masonic in reference to themselves. That's it. It's done. So all of that is just something that was used, like you brought in your demonstration. Misdirection, intentional, right? Because we know that it was also society, the fraternal society of Western Freemasonry through our own brothers that attempted more than once to try to kill the very prophets, the very individuals that our Father God of love sent for their divine and earthly salvation. And nowhere in the history of the Masonic order can you find that they ever came forth to intercede in the affairs of the melanated, Asiatic, sun-kissed, indigenous peoples of this planet, let alone in North America. Islam gratitude, man. It's a grand demonstration. Gratitude for all those demonstrations for peace and love.
And gratitude and peace and love for the measure, brother. You know, and yeah, a lot of our people, you know, they have been greatly misdirected when it comes to dealing with that. You know, when it comes to dealing with Western Freemasonry and all of that, you know, as far as knowing where the origin of those things derive from, you know, and you know, just briefly in the end, in my closing out, you know, because a lot of people, you know, have been attacking Prophet Noble Drew Ali based on his gestures, you know, and I had things in here I didn't go over, but I want to touch on just a few as I close this out. You know, like we already know the scimitar and star concept come from Kemet. You know, and for those who are watching my screen, you know, out there, our symbol come from Kemet. And it represents many things. It's a warning from the prophet. You know, he said, we are for love, truth, peace, and freedom. And you see that above our scimitar. And when these principles are violated, justice must take its course. That's the scimitar and the star right there. But, you know, we can see that the scimitar and the star are the symbols of Saudi Arabia and Morocco. And I have a depiction up here. If you were to put those flags together and merge them as our flag, you would see the Shahada over the top, the scimitar over the, you know, Moroccan star. But these symbols are indigenous to Islamism, long before any Shriners organization ever come on to manifest. That's why the Shriners are commemorating, you know, Ali, so to speak, in their shrine measures when they take their oath on the Quran, you know, and all that. They tell you that. So how can we then turn around and say that the Shriners, you know, gave birth to Islam? You know, so we have our own symbolism. That's why we created our Swift Angel Adept seal with everything it is that we have. And it's composed of everything that represent what we already been demonstrating. You know, like the wings, you know, that came from the chairman, the scimitar and the star. The prophet brought that. And we just show you where our adept degrees come from. You know, when it goes into dealing with the knots, you know, the 3 knots with the 7s in them, you know, the inverted crescent is to show that what we demonstrate coming forth from Kemet, because the inverted crescent is really symbolic to the headdress of the God man and God woman in Kemet that cradles the sun. And so the symbol in the middle of our adept seal symbolically is a spiritual sun. You know, like that's what it represents. And it represents, you know, that which is of ours. You know, it represents the cradle of our wisdom. So if we look, we see the Feds, for example, it go all the way back to 1176, 1162 BC. You know, all the way up into the most recent time, 711 up to 1492 AD, so to speak. You know what I mean? So we see that our symbol come from us. But like I said, the European is only trying to imitate us. Allah, Islam, Kaaba, Ali, Muhammad, Medina, Egyptian, Muslim, Al-Quran. Then they got the symbol with the, you know, ensnaring, so to speak, of the bingo clause under the scimitar. You see what I'm saying? The shinty, which they like to call the apron, is over 2,700 years prior, really 4,000 years old. You see the brother up here with his shinty on. But because somebody in a modern time wear it as a Mason, you gonna call it a Masonic. We see that similar, the prophet sitting down with his hand on his heart. If you're looking at my screen, in his throne of power, that was demonstrated in Kemet. You see the prophet standing up with his hand over his heart. You see Keti the scribe demonstrating that. That demonstrated in Kemet. Thousands of years. We see where the answer to the prophet holding his hand over his heart, we see the one known as La or Aya, as they would call him, the one that has the cradling moon with the sun over his head. We see that it represents Ara or Allah. So when the prophet put his hand over his heart, where's the nearest place you can meet him? Who? Allah, in the heart. So comedically, Aya, was expressing Allah by unveiling that. A call and response. We see, ones holding their hand up in adoration, toward the throne of Asa with their sash on their body in stone. But they talking about, oh, that's the Masonic sign. Noble Drew Ali held his hand up. We see the ones holding their hand up in adoration of the jet pillar, which is a symbolic, cosmological root of the tree of life. We see every time they held their hands up, it was adoration. We even see here where they say High Priest Muhammad saying his prayers, because that's the Takbir Tarima, Allahu Akbar. So when they see our prophet doing it, he's a Mason. Look at him. All this stuff was in Kemet prior to the prophet. You see? So everything the prophet did came out of Kemet. Even his headdress, his pagri. Look at the Libyan, which is the ancestor of the Moors, with the feather coming up out of the head of his headdress. And he actually favors the prophet. In stone. Look at the Lebu people right there with their feather of Ma'at coming out of their head in the comedic aspect being depicted on the bas relief. Look at the high priest in front of Asa with his sash on. You see? Look at this. Like all this stuff come from Kemet. All the way back 1200 BC. Same drawing. Here it is. Feather in the headdress. Sash on the body. The Lebu. Then you see our prophet. Now you see where he got it from. You understand? So the prophet said, look at what I have on. This was handed me by the government. It represents the royal prince. The United States government didn't give it to him. So who was it that gave it to him? I know my government, my chairman gave me my guard and the headdress. I made the sash with my own hand. And it's only 3 of us got that. The prophet sash, the chairman, the sheik, and myself. So when you look at this picture here, you see a brother that's a 96-degree Mason. Him and my chairman is in the picture together. But does that mean that my chairman is a part of his organization? Now we see the brother holding our ensigns in his hand. But does that mean he committed himself? And this is the brother that's the founder of the Moorish Rite. No, that don't mean that the chairman was a part of the Moorish Rite. And that ain't no slight at them brothers, because they brothers that trying to do their own thing. At least they're trying to do their own thing. But my thing is that you people have to stop doing that. But when we see brother Farrakhan here, he in full Masonic regalia of the 96 right. You understand? If they did properly, they went from message to the black man to the theology of time, to Noble Drew Ali, the exhuming of a nation is what we would be. So that's where it's at. And I showed the unity in the end of this thing here. The uniting of the Asiatic nations, because I had a dream that I actually talked to the brother Farrakhan, and he was teaching from the exhuming of a nation while we was in the meeting. Me, him, and Nuri Muhammad. And it inspired this particular picture right here that I got up here. You know what I mean? Because we trying to bring, I spoke with the brother Nuri via Facebook, and he told me, he said, my grandparents are Moors. They come up out of the MST of A. Yeah, he did. He was like, we need to find a way to bring the brothers and sisters together. So all that inspired me putting that in here. You know, Psalms 85 express our Moorish flag, whether you know it or not. We give honors to our brother El Logo, you know, for going out there with our flag, taking it all over the place throughout the years, you know, and putting it in front of people, even though he ain't here in the government. I even give honors to my brother Seven, Islam. He came to our meeting of Baltimore, you know, because the chairman talked to him. You know, that was a symbol of MST of A, you know, coming in the presence of Mag and demonstrate some peace. I even put this together. The Moorish Consortium of Circle 7. The prophet still working from third heaven. And these are the 7 different groups that everybody following. And I said the golden cord of love and unity, there is strength. I reposted this the other day and said, if any of y'all got, you know, real love in you, then share this. You understand? Regardless of what grand body you are a part of. Because out of one came many. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Canaanite Temple, Moorish Divine National Movement, Moorish Zionist Temple, Fahimi Temple of Islam, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, Canaanite Temple, Moorish Temple of Science, Moorish Science Temple, Mohammedan Temple, Moorish Science Temple, Allah Temple of Islam, Muhammad's Temple of Islam, Lost Founds Nation of Islam, the Moorish American government, the only one that can unite. You understand? And that's taking us into the capital empire and dominion of Moorish America. That's where we're trying to go. Moorish American nation established since 1865. It predated all. You see? And at the end, the providence of Allah is ever all his works. He ruled and directed with infinite wisdom. He had instituted laws for the government of the world. He had wonderfully varied them in all beings, and each by his nature, conforming to his will. Islam, Moors. So at this time, we're going to call on our officials because we know it's only so many of us present. That's why I extended the class. You know, we give honors to Act 1, you know, and we send healing vibrations into the ethers, you know, in relation to dealing with all of our Moorish kin throughout the Americas, you know. And at this time, we're going to call on our sister Offset Moonell if she's present. Islam, hold on, Moors. Let me see here, because I didn't notice this brother right here. We're going to see what he got to say before we go to our officials real quick. I know our national mufti is probably the only one that's going to come forth. It's Islam, brother G. Abernathy L.
Islam,
You have
more. Can
something
you
you
hear
want
me?
to say, brother, before I go to my officials?
Nothing. I miss y'all. Peace and love.
Hold on, brother. Sorry about that. Let me take that out there. Go ahead, brother.
Did you hear me more?
You can speak now.
I miss
Yes, sir.
y'all and
I
peace
can
and
hear
love.
you. Yes, sir. Peace and love, brother. Yes, sir. Okay, that's all you had to bring for a grand man?
Yes, at the moment, yes, sir.
Okay, Islam, brother. You know, Moorish
This
America is always home, grand man.
all is well.
Well,
I ain't going nowhere more.
all right, Islam.
Islam.
All right. Well, let me call on the officials then. Starting with Sister Offset Amun El. Islamism without the schism. All right. Sister Offset Amun El, are you there? Well, we know the sisters about her father's business. Let us call on our National Grand Mufti, Dr. Kanchu Mark Herube. Islam, you there, God man?
Islam.
Islamism without the schism, grand man.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Let's ride. Islam. Oh. And give our thanksgiving, adoration, worship, and praise to our Father God Allah, the great God of the universe, the most beneficent and the most wise, and let us also give the highest honors that we can give to his prophet, our prophet, the last prophet in these days and in these times, prophet Noble Drew Ali, El Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, the savior of humanity. We give honors to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we give honors to his government, our government, the Moorish American government, the government in which we live. According to Act 6, we give honors to the officials of this said government, our divine ministers, our swift angels, our mufti, our royal council, our secretaries. We give honors to our citizens, the Moorish Americans. We give honors to our flag and our divine constitution and bylaws, our Holy Quran, our Grand National Seal, our Grand National Emblem, our Book of Fire, the exhument of a nation. We give honors to everything that is Moorish. We give a special high honor to you, National Assistant Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shadu Amiti Metu Shesuel, for bringing forth the grand Moorish perspective this evening. We give honors to all of our Moorish kin who have spoken before us. We spoke Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, angels. We continue to give the honors where they're due and honoring all true and divine prophets. And we give honors to our ancestors as they have come before us, leading the way. We are them today without doubt or contradiction, because no one has the power to change man from his sin nature. Praise Allah for that. And Louis Khan, grand man, we just want to say it's a grand class. We think that, what you set out, the history, and making it plain, as you were saying, having those documents, as our assistant grand Moti always says, documentation and beats conversation. So the documentation and being able to see for yourself and make your own decisions about the truth of the matter is what our prophet said to do. He said, make it plain so a baby can understand. And so, one can try to doubt the prophet, prophethood of our prophet if you want to, but it's only going to be your own mind. As the prophet said, you don't believe I'm a prophet, just watch my prophecy. And we can bear witness that even in his prophecy, you see that everything that comes after him bears his mark, bears his fingerprint, where one has been influenced by what our prophet Noble Drew Ali has said and done in his works and acts and deeds during his time on the plane of manifest. So we give honors to him for bringing us the truth, pulling off the covers of all secret organizations, expressing that, emphatically, so one knows that he ain't a Mason or any of those other things, because it's no secret. And he didn't want any secrets. It's time for those things that are sacred for us to understand, so that we can take them into ourselves and be the guys and goddesses that we're supposed to be. Not mere followers of men who are, as he said, will lead you or have you right back into slavery. Just under somebody else's name, somebody else's rule. And that's not what a prophet is here to do. A prophet is here to free one. Show them the way back to salvation, to their Father God Allah, to their God, without the middleman, without the interceder, demonstrating that love is the key. So, gratitude for the class, gratitude to you, Moorish America, for being here with us and giving us time, attention, and respect. We love you. Islam and peace.
Islam and peace, Grand Mufti. You couldn't have said it in a better way. That's why I told him. It's a difference between the Egyptian hierophant and the Egyptian shriner. That don't take no slight at nobody. We just telling the truth. An Egyptian hierophant, look up the word hierophant. That's one that come to unveil and uncover that which is secret. So that's why the hierophant is mentioned in our lessons. Prophet knew exactly what he was doing. And so we just say gratitude with a divine attitude. And again, remember the subject matter in relation to this demonstration. And you may tear the temple down, and in 3 days it will be built again. You see, and we know again, you are the most holy temple of science, more God than you are mere man, huh? Holy, because you one with the great God through deific will. Temple, because you are the temple of perfected man that's being built with tools that we use in the workshop of the mind where thought is used to build character. And above your head and your neck is your true adept chamber. So when we talk about the adept chamber, the Moorish Holy Temple, or the Moorish Science Temple of America, it's above your neck. This is where you go through the senior course at. You see? 3 by 7. From the black fez to the white fez to the red fez degree. From the chemistry of mortal life to the ministry of death to the mystery of deific life. Right there. Islam, it don't get no plainer than the truth. You know, so with that being said, we know Act 1 is on a mission, you know, when it come down to dealing with the tribe, you know, so we going to call on our National Grand Sheikh and see if he's there. And if not, you know, I'll close out the meeting accordingly. Islam, you there, Grand Sheikh? I know he had came in early. I didn't know that was him. Dr. Serapis Amin Rael, National Grand Sheikh of Moorish America. Well, we know that if our sheik was on the manifest, he would have most likely answered. So we give honors to our National Grand Sheikh, Act 1, you know, our Grand National Chairman for the magnanimous work that he has done. You know, the last adept, you know, who has passed these lessons down to us so that now we can give them to you. You know, so we give honors to him and our sheik. Act 1, we give honors to the Moorish American government, staff, and officials, all the citizens, you know, even those who are sympathizers and empathizers, the common people among our people who have been standing in defense of these teachings because they have an understanding of what we teach, and even if they have not become a part and parcel of the Moorish American government. But for those of you who have race pride for your people, and you feel like that you really tired of being oppressed, you tired of being run amok, led astray, you tired of letting somebody play with your yo-yo, so to speak, you know, and you believe that your condition can be better, man, y'all come on into y'all Moorish American government, man. You already see the one that we've been under done failed us. This is not a fluke that we demonstrate. We already been acknowledged. We were told to go get our people and formulate a government among our people and come back, you know, with the senses of that. You understand? No nation can recognize us unless we recognize ourselves. You see? Government is based on the will of the people. And if you tired of, you see what's going on under this Roman demonstration. If you are tired of that, you know, come home and bring your talents to your nation and let's build, family. This is no religious organization we demonstrating over here. We're not trying to force feed you religion. We deal with nationality and divine creed, you know, but our goal is nationhood. And that's what the Moorish Divine National Movement is dedicated to. That's where all the Moors have dropped the ball at. May 1st, 19, the Moorish Divine and National Movement was founded for the purpose of the uniting of the Asiatic states. And when we say Asiatic states, that automatically equates the fullness of the Asiatic nations. And that's going into the continents. We acknowledge all of our brothers and sisters. So come home and bring your talents where they can be useful into the Moorish American government. That being said, Islamism without the schism, peace, love, and law at all costs. We love you with love and divinity. Don't let nobody tell y'all nothing different. Islam. So that being said, Moorish Ken, again, we love you and all is well, and well is all. Ayalulu Makida in the Moorish tongue, all is well. January 15th, 1929. A warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes on the streets. We are for peace, not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where the prophet found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting the prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we bring forth this divine decree. Chapter 25, a holy covenant of the Asiatic nations. Yea, the children of one father provided for by his care, and the breasts of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, and your love to each other. Go in peace, Muslims. Moorish movement, divine movement, everlasting movement, Islamism without the schism.
Glenn Crash, peace and love. Pop Crash.
Great plan, National Sister Grand.
Peace and love, more.
Peace and love, brother.
Great class. Don't forget to pay your dues, Moors. Don't forget to pay your dues. We love you, Moors. Peace and love.
Very powerful class, bro. Love all you Moors. Don't get paid to do. Love you, Sheikh, Sister Grand, Sheikh, Chairman. Love all you Moors. And don't get paid to do. Peace and love. That's right. Love we talk clean to the Chairman.
Islamism to the tribe of endurance, and want to give honor to all of our Moorish kin. We can't forget them that checked in. Tarif Bey, Born Dog, Donnell. Look like we got issues. We give honors to you, Charles Warrell, Atham, 7922. Honors to your brother. Look like KY Kayo Islam. Honors to you as well. Noble Brian L. Always showing up. Our sister, Sina Ra, Renee. We give honors to you. And honors to our brother G. Abernathy. We give honors to you as well. Love your family. It's been a grand one.
Praise Allah for all.
And peace and love. See y'all on the next session.
Peace and love, man. See, great class, powerful class. Peace and love.
Peace and love, family.